Yes, Julia.
There are the 2 tables to be taken out in the chair. And I think we're going to have the bathing tent out as well in this lot. Can you hear me, Edmund?
Yes, Julia.
What was that you said?
I said, yes, Julia, I can hear you perfectly.
Take your jacket off. You're perspiring. You might have been considerate enough to get back a little earlier today. You knew perfectly well we were giving a tennis party.
Yes, of course, my dear.
For Miss Cranmere to meet Wyvern's course.
But I was trying to get through my round. There are still 2 visits I must make.
Whom?
Mrs. Parrott and the Curtis boy.
You can see them after surgery. These lines don't look at all good. Did you tell Widdicombe to do them this morning?
I told him distinctly. But you know what Widdicombe is?
I do. You'll have to run over them again.
Yes, I shall try to find time.
Try? My dear Edmund, it must be done.
But my lunch...
Edmund, your lunch takes much lower precedence than my tennis party.
My contention, my lad, is as follows. It was not until several weeks after he had decided to murder his wife that Dr. Bickley took any active steps in the matter. Murder is a serious business. The slightest slip may be disastrous. Dr. Bickley had no intention of risking disaster.
Shall I tell Florence to serve tea, my dear?
Don't be stupid. We can't possibly serve tea until Miss Cranmere comes.
Of course, I'm sorry.
You were saying, Vicar?
This young woman whom we are to meet this afternoon.
She's unpardonably late.
Do I gather that she intends to live alone at the Hall? Except for the servants, of course.
Yes, I fear so.
A most equivocal position for one so young.
I gather she's an orphan. Apparently, she's only just come into control of her money, and it's quite turned her head.
Dear, dear, very sad.
Someone will have to speak to her to let her know what one feels.
Precisely. That, in fact, is what I had made up my mind to do. Not a task I should choose.
Oh. Do you think it's a man's job? I had rather thought.
My wife, do you mean?
I had rather felt the responsibility to be mine. After all, one's upbringing.
Ah, yes.
I remember my grandmother once had occasion. Lady Denbury, I mean, not Lady Crustanton.
Daddy seems to have probably got off with that ghastly woman.
What ghastly woman?
It's 40-30. Set point to us. That's dead. 6-2.
Well, who's going to play now? Winifred. Shall you and I?
Oh, no, I can't play. I'm terribly out of practice.
Oh, come along, Winifred. Do you good. Give you an appetite for your tea.
Now, I think we'll have a men's fall. We must give Mr. Chatsford a game. Benji and Harford can play again. Edmund, I suppose you'll have to play to make up the fall. Oh, no, I'd forgotten Denny. He can play good. Denny Bourne, you'll play.
Only too happy to give them a lesson.
Good. You'll be much better than Edmund.
Teddy's far too good for her.
What?
I think Teddy's rather sweet, don't you?
I think he's an awful little worm.
Well, ask Ivy what she thinks.
Ivy? My sister? Do you mean you
I
think
don't
that she...
mean anything. And anyway, Teddy's got eyes for no one but Gwynethid Rattery nowadays.
By the way, I've got those cuttings ready for you, Winifred. The hydrangea cuttings I promised you last month.
Oh, yes.
Not very exciting. Hello, Ivy. Talk to Kwani and I've got to go and play again.
What isn't very exciting? We were watching Teddy and Winifred.
Oh, you'd better come along and take a look at them now, while you're free. Perhaps you'd like to come along.
Now's his chance.
Where are they then?
Winifred.
Is that your heart beating? I can hear it from here.
Yes. My heart.
Dr. Bickley, what on earth do you think you're doing?
But you know I like you frightfully.
No, I don't.
You must have seen it.
I never thought of you like that at all.
I like you better than anyone I've ever known.
You say that to every girl.
No, I don't. I swear I don't.
Well, you've no right to say it to me.
Why not?
You're a married man.
I don't care. Winifred,
What?
let me kiss you.
No.
Why not?
I don't want to.
But why not?
Well, I couldn't kiss you. I wouldn't dream of coming between husband and wife.
But I like you so dreadfully. Listen, Winifred. I love you.
Let me go, Dr. Bickley.
Oh, don't call me Dr. Bickley. Call me Teddy.
Please, let me go.
Just let me kiss you first.
I will not.
I love you.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care anything.
Winifred, stop. The cuttings.
I can't think how you dare. No, don't bother to look for it. I'll get Edmund to.
Well, if you're sure that's all
Yes,
right.
yes, you get on with your game. What are husbands for? But of course you don't know yet. You'll find out soon enough. Oh, there is Edmund. Edmund,
Yes, Julia.
where have you been? I've been wanting you. You haven't met Miss Cranmere. Miss Cranmere, this is my husband, Edmund. Good afternoon.
How do you do?
And they're a ball short. Benji hit one into the gooseberry bushes. Go and find it at once. And hurry up. I wanted to tell Florence we're ready for tea.
Ah, good morning, Bickley. Good morning. On your rounds, ministering to the sick.
Yes, that's it.
And how's old Mrs. Brent today?
She's dead.
Dead, is she? Dear, dear.
Well, you buried her last week.
Oh. I called on Miss Cranmere yesterday.
Oh, yes?
A most refreshing young woman, I'm glad to be able to say. You might tell your wife, most refreshing.
Refreshing.
Quite unlike the normal young woman of today, the flapper.
Ah, yes, I see.
Do you know, she promised me £100 for our restoration fund.
Did she now?
Offered it, no less. She had admired the church and had noticed the scaffolding on the west front. A most observant young woman. I feel she will be a credit to every one of us.
Indeed.
And a credit to the whole community. Bye-bye, Bickley.
Good morning, Vicar. Excuse me, my dear.
Where are you off to?
See Miss Cranmere at the hall.
And what is the matter with her?
Apparently she suffers from nervous headaches.
Imagination, no doubt. But she will be well able to pay for her imaginary disorders. £100 for the church restoration fund. 10 would have been ample.
Dr. Bickley, ma'am. Dr. Bickley? How good of you to come so quickly. How very good of you.
Not at all. When the owner of the hall sends for one, it's like a royal command.
Oh, Did you come as quickly for Colonel Swinkham?
I didn't come at all for Colonel Swinkham. He had his own doctor in Merchester.
I see.
Now, about these headaches.
So, in fact, you've never been here before?
I had heard, of course, what a beautiful house it was.
Isn't it gorgeous? You must let me show you around. Do you know about architecture?
Well, something, yes.
I knew you did.
Oh, just a little hobby of mine, merely.
You must give me your opinion. I'm thinking of having some reconstruction done.
Oh, if I can be of any help.
Oh, I'd so much value your advice.
I say, what a magnificent view.
I'll show you around now, if you like.
Now, the first thing I should do if I were you is to get a drainage expert to look at the sanitation.
Sanitation? How unromantic.
Unromantic and unhealthy and positively dangerous. I shouldn't think it's been looked at much since the house was built, what, 300 years ago?
If you say so, of course I shall do something about it.
It needs a completely new system.
Oh, lovely tea out here. How nice. You will stay and have some tea, won't you?
Oh, well,
Oh, please do. Otherwise, I shall have to have it all by myself.
In that case.
Splendid. I do so value your advice. Do you take sugar, Dr. Bickley?
I must never try to flirt with her. 2 lumps, please.
Edmund, why didn't you let me know that you weren't going to be into tea?
Because I didn't know myself, my dear.
It was very inconvenient. And you're exceedingly late for surgery. There are patients waiting for you.
Well, if a man mayn't be late for his own surgery, whose surgery may he be late for?
Edmund, have you been drinking?
Only tea.
Barry Clough on the White Elephant stall. Yourself?
On cakes and confectionery, as usual. And Miss McLaurin.
I say, have you heard about Madeline Cranmere?
Now, Quania, dear, that isn't why you're here. Now, where was I?
Sorry, I didn't know you'd heard.
And Miss McLaurin, unlucky did.
Heard what, dear?
About Madeline Cranmere.
I've heard that she's unable to take charge of the preserve stall.
Nor of anything else, from what I hear.
What do you mean, dear? Something happened to her?
No, I should say it has. Dr. Bickley's gone potty about her.
Dr. Bickley? I don't care to hear that kind of gossip. Now, the Restoration Fund raffle.
It isn't gossip, Miss Beatty. It's true. He goes up to the hall every day.
Miss Cranmere suffers from headaches. Hence her withdrawal from the preserve stall.
Headaches, perhaps, but not the sort that need a doctor dancing attendance night and day.
Night?
Well, afternoons anyway.
Lunch ready, eh, Florence?
Yes, sir.
Good.
It was from Miss Ridgway, sir. She said there was no answer.
Ah, yes. Not a prescription I promised her, I expect.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that's it. Well, I'll just wash my hands. Won't be a tick.
You weren't coming.
Sorry I'm late. I'm awfully busy just now.
Did you want to come? I don't believe you did.
Want to? Of course I wanted to. But a poor hard-worked GP can't always do what he wants, you know.
You'd have wanted to much more if it had been Winifred Rattery.
What? Winifred Rattery? What an extraordinary idea. How do you know her?
You know her well enough to go away from the tennis court with her for half an hour?
To get her some cuttings, and it took about 5 minutes. Don't talk such nonsense, Ivy.
I wasn't the only one who noticed it.
Some cuttings that I promised her. I don't even like the girl. Ought to know me better than that, Ivy.
And I'll tell you who you do like. It's that Madeleine Cranmere.
What?
Oh, yes, I've heard all about it. Going up to the hall every day, dancing attendance on her, because she pretends she's ill.
She happens to suffer from nervous headaches.
And you're a busy, hard-worked GP. Too busy to come here and meet me until I send you a note, but not too busy to go up to the hall every day.
I will not have Miss Cranmere's name brought into this vulgar discussion.
Yes, you will, because I'm going to bring it in, whether you like it or not.
Now, I warn you.
If you can't see through it yourself, it's time someone told you. She's playing with you, that's all, just amusing herself. She's a flirt.
Stop! No interest in Miss Cranmere, beyond the ordinary friendly relations of a neighbour who is also a patient. Anything else is utterly absurd.
You really don't like her better than me?
No, of course I don't.
No Winifred Rattery either?
No, certainly not.
Oh, Teddy, do you still like me best of all?
Yes, of course I do, Ivy.
More than ever?
Yes.
You don't. I don't believe it. If you did, you'd be kissing me.
Oh, God, you're so boring. There. I do like you best of all, Ivy.
Oh, do you? Do you really?
Yes, I do.
Oh, darling. Well, let's have our tea. You know what day it is today?
Wednesday.
No, the date.
The 12th.
It's the anniversary of our first, you know, here.
Oh, yes.
You'd forgotten.
For the moment. Just for the moment. Oh, I knew it was about a year.
Well, somebody else thinks I'm attractive, even if you don't. I could have been somewhere quite different this afternoon if I'd wanted to.
Huh? Where could you have been?
Well, it's early closing day in Merchester. And somebody asked me to go for a car ride with him. I nearly went, Teddy.
Who?
Oh, I couldn't possibly tell you that. But I do believe he rather likes me.
Come along, Ivy. Who is it?
Mr. Chatford.
The solicitor?
Yes.
He's a very good fellow, Chatford.
Aren't you jealous?
What? Yes, of course I am. How far's it gone? Does he want to marry you?
What if he does?
Just that you might do worse, Ivy.
Oh, Teddy, you don't want me to.
Want you to? Good gracious me, no. But, darling, you know you and I can never marry. Julia won't divorce me. And I couldn't be so selfish as to keep you from marrying.
Oh, Teddy.
Oh, I should simply hate the idea, of course. Awful. But I should have to bear it, for your sake.
I shall never marry anyone if I can't marry you.
Edmund, how lovely to see you. You're staying to have some tea?
Most kind of you.
Oh, what's that you got under your arm?
Well,
Oh, you brought your sketches to show me.
you said you might be interested.
Oh, well, I am. Can I see them now, straight away?
Of course, if you want to.
Spread them out here. I want to see them all.
Now, these are some local scenes I did a few years ago. You may recognize some of the places.
Indeed, I do. They're very good.
Oh, do you think so?
You have a gift. A wonderful gift.
Do you really think so?
Yes, I do. I sketch a little myself.
You do? I knew it.
Oh, but I'm hopeless. I'd do anything to have a talent like yours. Did you never think of taking it up? Of becoming an artist?
Oh, no, no, no. It's only a hobby. Spare time thing.
Oh,
Do you like it?
she must have been very beautiful.
Well, as a matter of fact, I sketched that out of my head. No model.
That's exactly what I mean. There's a vividness in it, a vitality, which makes one feel it must be like somebody. If it isn't, that makes it all the more remarkable.
Oh, very kind of you to say so.
That, too. Incredibly lifelike, without a hint of flattery. So lovely. You'd be marvelous drawing from life.
Would I?
One would so love to have you... Well, if you're not too terribly busy, could I possibly ask you to draw me?
Miss Cranmere is a very charming girl, a very generous girl. I will not hear a word against her, not even from my own daughter.
Really, dear, you mustn't say such things. Simply because she's unable to take charge of a preserve stall.
All I said was she's got Dr. Bickley on a string.
Never mind about the preserves. I will find a generous helper.
Dr. Bickley and Denny Vaughan as well.
Quillian, dear, you mustn't say things like that, even if they're true.
Where's the harm in speaking the truth?
Providing that it is the truth, which in this case I very much doubt.
Oh, Father.
And what exactly does that mean?
Well, everyone knows what she is. And the truth about Madeline Cranmer...
Quillian, that will be enough.
But...
Enough! Do you hear me?
Yes,
A
Father.
public-spirited girl like Miss Cranmere with the welfare of the parish church at heart?
Another gun.
That girl, Madeline Cranmere, is getting herself talked about.
Really? People around here will talk about anyone.
She seems to have absolutely no discretion about whom she allows to visit her. Alone.
Who do you mean?
Denny Bourne.
What? You don't mean to say they're talking about Miss Cranmer and Denny Bourne? It's disgraceful. Who told you?
The vicar's wife asked my advice on the matter.
Old scandalmonger. I think it's disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
You seem very heated about it, Edmund.
Well, who wouldn't be a nice girl like that? Beats me how these things get about.
But they do get about.
So it seems.
Edmund, are you trying to seduce that girl?
Look here,
I
Julia.
wouldn't bother to deny it. Normally, I don't interfere with your amusements. If a girl is fool enough to be taken in by a man like you, she must learn her lesson. But I warn you, in this case, I will not permit it.
How dare you? You've absolutely no right to speak.
Shout, please, Edmund. There's no need to say any more, and I wouldn't believe you if you did.
Listen to me, Julia. Miss Cranmer is one
I
of those...
have told you I will not allow you to pester Miss Cranmer with your attentions. You better not go up to the hall again. If she needs a doctor, she can send for Dr. Lipston from Merchester. That will be all.
It won't be all. I won't stand for this sort of thing, even from you, Julia. You don't know the first thing about Miss Cranmer if you imagine for one moment... Oh, it's just like you frigid women, always finding some beastliness. Let me tell you, Miss Cranmer is the purest...
I have no wish to hear. You will do as I say, not go up to the hall again, and that concludes the subject. Have you finished your pudding? If so, ring for Florence to clear away.
And how do you like living in Wyvern's Cross?
The village itself is enchantingly pretty. Of course, I adore this dear old house. But
May I guess that the sigh is for the people of Wyvern's Cross?
how well you read my mind.
They have souls of clay.
Have you found no one among them who is in any way...
No one. No one at all. There's always been this void in my life.
Mrs. Bickley is not...
Unfortunately, no.
Sad.
Yes.
No one in my own family ever understood my modest love of beauty. My tiny desire to find self-expression in some form of art. No one anywhere. Until...
Oh, it's no good. I can't get you.
May I see it?
If you wish, but...
It's very clever.
You think so?
Really clever. But then all your work is clever.
Clever, perhaps, but shallow.
Oh, no. I don't see what you mean by not being able to get me. I think it's exactly like me.
Oh, yes, it's like you. But anyone with a bit of a knack could draw something that would be like you. I was trying to get at you. I mean, the real you, the you I wanted to show, the you hide from everyone, except for a tiny glimpse now and then to some lucky person.
And do you imagine it is such a me?
I don't imagine, I know. And I believe I've been fortunate enough to catch one or two of those glimpses.
Perhaps you have.
I suppose you know what I'm doing. I'm making love to you.
Yes.
she's a flirt, and what's wrong with that? If she likes flirting, and she obviously does, as I do.
I'm not keen on it myself.
Well, she is.
Oh, she must be desperate for it, or she wouldn't choose Dr. Bickley.
Oh, I don't know.
A horrid little man.
Do you think so?
Positively.
Why?
Oh, I just do.
Oh, Gwynfryd, how awful.
Awful?
I hadn't realised, although I did suspect, the day of the Bickley tennis party.
I don't know what you mean.
I did wonder when I saw you come back from the potting shed.
That was quite innocent. It was. At least on my part. Quite a little beastly.
Did you slap his face?
Another moment and I
Good
would...
morning, girl. I can't tell you how pleased I am that you're able to take charge of the preserve stall, my dear. I was beginning to get quite restless about it.
Personally, I find him rather attractive.
Oh, no, horrid.
What do you think, Miss Peavy?
Who are you talking about, dear?
Well, do you think Dr. Bickley horrid, or do you find him rather attractive?
Edmund, you weren't into tea. No. Where were you?
I was at the hall.
Edmund,
Yes.
I have a headache, a severe headache. Please get me something from surgery to relieve it.
Yes, of course. Aspirin.
Perfectly well, aspirin doesn't suit me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Get you something else. Here we are. Drink that.
What is it?
Morphia.
Morphia?
Oh, half a grain in water. Will relieve the headache, make you feel sleepy.
I hope so.
Very sleepy, very soon.
Hello, Ivy.
Teddy, I've been waiting for you. I knew Mrs. Belton was ill, so I hoped you'd be coming this way.
Oh?
Teddy, I must speak to you.
Well, jump in then. Now, what's it all about?
Teddy, I don't know how to tell you. I don't.
Tell me what?
Can we turn off the road? We don't want people to see us.
It's all right. Just for 5 minutes. What's all the trouble?
It's terrible. I'm going to have a baby.
Nonsense.
I am. I ought to know, oughtn't I?
Then it isn't mine.
Teddy.
Who else have you been with?
Oh, Teddy, how can you?
You must have been.
I swear I haven't no one but you.
Well, I suppose it isn't your fault. Oh, Ivy, do stop that damn crying. How can I think? All right. If you really are, you needn't worry. I'll operate.
But doctors aren't allowed to.
Sometimes doctors have no choice.
But you might kill me. It's dangerous.
Do you think I'd suggest it if it was? Do use your sense.
You don't care what happens to me. Teddy. Teddy. Aren't you a little bit sorry for me?
Yes, yes.
You're not. You're cross. If you really love me, you'd be glad.
Glad? Don't be such a fool.
Oh, you don't love me. You don't. Oh, it wouldn't be so horrid to me. Oh. Oh, well, it's lucky I'm not going to have a baby after all.
What? What was that?
I made it all up to find out if you really love me. Well, now I know, don't I? So it's lucky I'm not, isn't it?
You little bitch.
That's right, call me names. I'm nothing now, of course, not since you met your precious Madeline. Why don't you call her that? That's what she is, and everyone knows it. She's just a...
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was behind with all my visits. Oh, it's your dress for going out.
Yes, I know. I ought not to have waited so long, but I had to see you first. I'm due for tea at the Bournes.
Oh, you never told me.
Well, how could I? Lady Bourne sent her son over with a note only this morning.
Denny? Well, you should have told him you couldn't go.
Well, how could I? It would have looked so bad.
Not if you had a previous engagement.
I know it's a nuisance, but I can't see you all the time, only you. People will begin to talk.
Good heavens, let them talk.
I was thinking of you, Edmund. Gossip can do a doctor so much harm.
You are the dearest girl.
Edmund. It can't go on.
It?
Us.
Why ever not?
It isn't fair. To Julia.
But she doesn't care for me, nor I for her.
She's your wife, though. You have a duty to her. Oh, we must give each other up.
I can't, darling. Can't I? I won't.
Oh, do you love me so much?
More than anything. And you me?
More than life itself, but we must part.
We can't. It would kill us both.
We must. We must.
No, no.
I couldn't bear to think of breaking up a marriage.
An unhappy marriage.
We mustn't think of ourselves, darling. That would be selfish.
Madeline.
But I must go, Edmund. I shall be unforgivably late.
I'll speak to Julia.
I forbid you to.
Julia must never know. We must suffer. There's no reason why she should too. Not a word. Promise.
Will you have coffee, Mum?
No, not coffee. I have rather a headache.
Shall I get you
No, later on. Sit down, Edmund. I want to talk to you. That will be all, Florence.
Yes, Mum.
It's no trouble, my dear.
Quiet, Edmund. I will say what I have to say. Now, I understand that in direct contradiction to my wishes, you have been
Now, wait a
seeing...
minute, Julia. I want to speak to you, too. About Miss Cranmere. I want to tell you this. I love Miss Cranmere and she loves me.
And what do you propose to do about it?
Well, I haven't...
And how am I to know that this is not just another of the ordinary, sordid intrigues in which you have indulged continuously since the day we were married?
No.
Oh, you needn't bother to deny it. I've known them all. Irene Sanford, Sybil Whitchurch, the Ride Girl, Dean Pryor's daughter in Merchester, Ivy Ridgway, even Mabel Christie. I've said nothing because that sort of vulgarity simply doesn't interest me. But the time has come for plain speaking. How am I to know that Madeline Cranmere is not just another to be added to your squalid little list?
Don't you dare mention her name in the same breath as
Very
the...
well. Very well. I see you think yourself rarely in love with a girl.
Yes, I am.
On a rather short acquaintance.
It was love at first sight.
see. Most romantic at your age. And what do you wish me to do about this love at first sight of yours?
Well, I thought you might agree to divorce me.
You realize such a thing would ruin your practice here.
Yes, I thought of starting off again somewhere else.
And you'd have to make me an allowance. As you are well aware, I have no money of my own at all. How do you propose to do that and work up a new practice at the same time?
No, I don't think there'd be any difficulty about that, Julia.
I see. You propose to pension off your first wife with your second wife's money?
I haven't thought out any details yet.
Edmund, you know perfectly well that I am not in love with you and never have been. I married you to escape from an intolerable situation at home for no other reason. Therefore, I have no moral claim on you at all. However, that is not the reason for my decision. The reason is Miss Cranmere, a most exceptional girl. I will say nothing about her taste in selecting you out of all the men who would be glad to marry her, but I will say that you are undeservedly fortunate.
You mean?
I am prepared to give you your chance.
Julia.
But I must be certain that she is not mistaken in her feelings for you. Yours for her I will take for granted. Therefore, I stipulate that all three of us shall wait a year. If at the end of that year she still wishes to marry you, then you shall have your divorce.
Good afternoon. May I see Miss Cranmere, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Miss Cranmere's out.
Out? Oh, but I had a... Did she leave a message?
No, sir, she didn't leave no message.
Oh, well, must have slipped her mind. Thank you. She had to go out. Couldn't get out of it. She left me a note explaining. Couldn't be helped.
I'm glad you're back. I've had a dreadful headache all day. Would you make me up a mixture of what was it? Morphia?
Yes, of course, straight away.
It did me so much good last time.
Won't be a tick.
Will you ever forgive me?
Forgive you?
Not being here when you called and not a word of explanation. I knew you'd think me a beast, and I was a beast.
No.
But I simply couldn't help it, honestly. I had to go to the Bournes. It would have looked so funny if I'd refused. Lady Bourne sent Denny and me for the mixed doubles at the Merchester tournament. I don't think I can possibly play in a tournament, but I had to go there and practice. Did you hate me very much, Edmund?
Good gracious me, no. Just wondered why you didn't leave a note, that's all.
I couldn't. What would the servants have thought?
Ah, yes, of course. Never mind about that. Got something rather splendid to tell you. I told Julia the other night about us.
You told her? About us?
Yes. Oh, you said
But
you
I
would...
told you not to. You promised not to.
No, darling,
You
I
did promise.
No, really?
You did? How dare you? And I didn't want you to. It's horrible of you.
But I was simply trying to do the right thing. It seemed the best way was to bring it out into the open.
Fool. You may have ruined the whole thing. Not just a fool, but mean and underhand.
What?
Doing something like that without asking me first, without my permission.
But Julia's agreed to a divorce. Don't you think it's marvelous?
Sordid. I think it's dreadfully embarrassing for me. I suppose you want me to be branded as the other woman.
Oh, no, nothing like that. Of course not.
I couldn't dream of marrying a divorced man.
Edmund, I called on Miss Cranmere this afternoon.
Oh, yes?
What I have to say will pain you, but it has got to be said. My interview with Miss Cranmere this afternoon was most instructive. It opened my eyes to her real character. Edmund, that girl is a hypocrite.
Julia.
A hypocrite. She has not the least feeling for you. She is merely amusing herself. Did you know that she is conducting a flirtation with Denny Bourne every bit as violent as the one with you? She is a poseuse of the worst description. Nothing interests her but herself and her own silly emotions. She has not the least intention of marrying you.
Did she tell you that?
Oh, she is the most dangerous kind of liar. The kind who can deceive not only other people, but herself as well.
Now, look here, Julia.
Sit down, Edmund, and don't be childish. Let me make it clear to you. I have not the least intention of divorcing you for the sake of that girl.
But you said...
I know what I said, and I have withdrawn it. It would only cause you quite unnecessary unhappiness. Now, if you should ever meet a girl, a really nice girl...
Oh, shut up! Shut up, you!
Dr. Bickley, ma'am.
Julia.
My darling, you've been crying.
Oh, she doesn't like me. I can feel it. What has she been saying about me?
Oh, nothing much.
What has she been saying, Edmund?
Nothing really.
Tell me.
Well, some nonsense about you and Denny Bourne. That you've been flirting with him or something.
Did you believe her?
My darling, of course I didn't.
Well, it's true.
But you flirted with him?
No, not flirted with him, but let him be attentive to me in public on purpose.
Why?
For your sake, Edmund. I was afraid people might start to talk about us, so I rather encouraged poor Denny. Although people were looking at us rather a lot, I don't think they'll talk about us anymore.
Oh, my wonderful darling.
Are you not cross with me?
Cross? How could I be cross? But...
But what?
You're not fond of him, are you?
Fond of him? He's only a boy.
It's me you really love, isn't it?
Yes, Edmund.
More than anything?
More than life itself.
Edmund? Oh, I'm glad you're back. I need some more of your morphine mixture. I've had a headache coming on all day.
Yes, Julia.
It was that night that Dr. Bickley made the decision that Julia must die.
very good of you to give me a lift, Dr. Bickley.
Not at all. Where have you been?
The dreaded Davies.
Good game.
Exhausting.
Lucky for you I came along then.
Oh, somebody would have. Not that I'm not grateful. I say, have you heard the latest?
I don't expect so. What?
About Ivy.
No.
She's engaged.
Is she? Who to?
Mr. Chatford, the solicitor.
Excellent. Capital fellow, chap. Very sound.
Shouldn't care for him as a husband myself. But there's no accounting for taste, is there? I dare say he'll suit Ivy well enough.
I dare say.
Ivy's awfully gooey, isn't she?
Gooey?
Soppy.
Yes. Perhaps she is a little.
You used to like her all right, though, didn't you?
Yes, quite.
I thought more than quite.
It was perfectly harmless. Which is more than one can say for everyone else around here.
People do gossip a hell of a lot, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Miss Peavy, for instance.
Miss Peavy?
Who do you think she's got a knife into now?
Can't imagine.
Madeline Cranmere, of all people.
Indeed.
If you bet she has. I can't think why. I'm awfully fond of Madeline myself. Aren't you, Dr. Bickley?
I think Miss Cranmere is a very charming young lady. What is Miss Peavy saying about Miss Cranmere?
No, the most extraordinary story.
What?
She's saying that Madeline's in love with a married man and causing the most awful trouble between him and his wife. She says that they want a divorce and the man's wife won't divorce him and there'll be the most awful scandal when it all comes out and... oh, lots of things like that. I don't believe a word of it. Do you, Dr. Bickley?
Not a word. It's ridiculous.
But it's all round the place just the same. Everybody's talking about it.
And who is this married man Miss Cranmere is supposed to be in love with?
Well, nobody seems to know that. I expect there isn't such a person at all, if you ask me. Don't you?
I think it's abominable the way people tell these lies.
Oh, I think it's worse than abominable, especially as everyone knows it's Denny Bourne she really likes. Oh, this is me. Thank you so much for the lift.
Not at all. Any time. Miss Peavy?
Dr. Bickley, how nice to see you.
I hear you have been spreading reports about Miss Cranmere. I propose to advise Miss Cranmere to instruct her solicitors. Have you anything to say?
Oh, Dr. Bickley.
You don't deny it, then?
But I don't understand it in the least. No one has ever accused me of... How dare you?
Then you do deny it.
Certainly I do. I never spread gossip. It is really...
Then how do you account for the rumors which I hear are circulating about Miss Cranmere?
I don't see why I should be called upon to account for them at all. What rumors?
Connecting her name with a married man's or some such nonsense?
Quadian Tor told me that. I refuse to listen.
That's your story, is it?
Dr. Bickley, it's my opinion that you've been drinking.
Why have you got your knife into Miss Cranmere?
I haven't got my knife into her.
Are you saying that you like Miss Cranmere?
No, I don't say that. In fact, I don't like her. I've never liked her. I think she's untruthful. And if you don't want rumors about her and a married man, you'd better blame the married man. And tell him to see to it that there's no cause for them in the future. That's what you'd better do. Oh.
Edmund, I've been thinking.
So have I, and you're very naughty. After all I've said, you've done nothing at all about those drains, have you? And you really must, you know. You need a completely new system.
You say so, darling.
Don't want you dying in my arms from typhoid.
What a lovely place to die.
But not a lovely death.
Perhaps it could be done while I'm abroad.
Are you going abroad?
Yes.
Where? Why?
To Monte Carlo.
Monte Carlo?
I love the coast there. I want to walk along the front and think things over.
What things?
Us.
Darling.
It's best that I go away for a while. I do so hate the idea of being talked about.
Oh, but what does it matter?
It does matter. It's horrid. Oh, Edmund. If only you were married.
roast beef. It's always grapefruit to start.
The cook has culled some silly ideas about balanced menus from the magazines she reads.
But I like grapefruit, don't you?
Pleasant enough, well sugared.
Of course, well sugared.
You may ring, Edmund.
Certainly, my dear. By the way, I have a piece of news which I think might please you.
No? What is that?
Miss Cranmere.
I can hardly be pleased by any news about Miss Cranmere.
She's going abroad.
Forever?
For a while.
Yes, I can see her point. Not too much meat, please, Edmund. One slice will be quite enough.
Her point?
Yes.
Thank you, Flora.
Thank you, sir.
A point, what point?
Denny Bourne's just gone back to Oxford for the Michaelmas term.
What do you imply by that?
One flirtation in Wyvern's course would hardly be enough to keep Miss Cranmere amused for the winter. She would need at least two. And I imagine that abroad would be an easier and more discreet place to find them.
My dear, not eating.
No.
The beef is excellent. Is it that you aren't hungry?
I suddenly don't feel like eating anything.
Julia?
I have the most appalling headache coming.
Oh, my dear.
A positively blinding headache. Get me something.
You sit there. I'll get Florence. She can help you to bed.
For the headache, morphia.
Florence, your mistress is not at all well. Please help her to bed.
Yes, sir.
I'll just get her some medicine. Afternoon off, my dear.
Afternoon's off. Start after lunch.
Oh, I gave her permission to leave early. She's got everything ready for lunch, and it's cold.
You had no business to do so without asking me.
Oh, I meant to, but you were busy. I hope you will not mind having your lunch alone, my dear. I have an urgent call to the Burton child. I'm afraid it might be diphtheria.
Children always seem to get their diseases at inconvenient times.
Yes, I'll just make up some medicine for him in the surgery. Will you excuse me?
Oh, very well.
Edmund.
Julia, good heavens, what's the matter? Is it one of your headaches? Go to the surgery and lie down.
Oh, morphine would help.
Yes, I'll give you something to relieve the pain.
Morphine, please.
I'll give you some. Now tell me, it really is bad, your head, is it?
Agonizing.
The morphine will work more quickly if I give it as a subcutaneous injection in your arm.
Be quick as you can, exactly.
Yes. Roll your sleeve up, please, Julia. I shall give you quite a powerful dose. More than last time. You'll feel the prick of the needle, but it will relieve the pain.
Please. Thank you.
And you've been having these headaches, yes? For how long, approximately?
Over 3 months.
I must have a look at your liver.
But I never touch alcohol.
And your tonsils. Probably the cause of the whole trouble.
My tonsils?
If there are any signs of sepsis, have you looked at them, Bickley?
No, I never thought of that.
Ah, our tonsils. They are the great troublemaker. If there are any signs at all, they should come out without delay. And you'll be right as rain afterwards. Right as absolute rain.
But really, what can tonsils possibly have to do with headache? Have we no brown sugar? I detest white sugar with coffee.
Florence mentioned to me we'd run out of brown.
Well, then why didn't Florence get some more? The girl's a fool.
You see, my dear, Sir Tamerton is a very famous specialist, and he's very keen on tonsils. Now, if we'd have gone to Hamilton Beacon, who's almost a bigger man as Sir Tamerton, he'd have gone for your antrim and paraffin oil.
If you know in advance what any specialist is going to tell you, why bother to take me to one?
Oh, it's always good to have a second opinion.
And pay Harley Street prices for it? Well, I certainly shan't have my tonsils out at my age.
Oh, it's a very painful operation.
So I believe.
Oh, dear, not again.
Yes, certainly. Quick, Edmund.
But I gave you a grain of morphia just just after tea.
But it's worse than ever. A kind of shooting pain.
Now, look here, Julia. It can't go on like this. It simply can't.
I insist that you give me an injection.
Can't give you any more, Julia, for your own sake.
Oh, please, Edmund.
No, Julia.
I'll change my doctor then.
No doctor who knew what you've been having would take the responsibility of giving you any more. You must learn to do without it, Julia. And now I must go. Mrs. Gorry is very bad, and I promised to look in on her after dinner.
Oh, please, Edmund.
I'll just get some things from my surgery first. I'll take the car. I shall be back in 5 minutes, 10 at the most. Will she do it? She must.
Letters for you, Mum. Letters for you, sir.
Thank you, Florence.
Can I have the foreign stamp, sir? For my brother. He collects them.
Certainly, Florence. I'll keep it for you.
Thank you, sir.
Letter from abroad?
So it seems.
From whom?
Oh, it's from some people in France. They've formed a new international medical league. They've invited me to join them.
Does it cost money to join?
Yes. Charlatans and swindlers, all of them. I shall write and tell them so.
I have a letter from Hilda, asking if she may visit us on Sunday the 16th, bringing Victor.
Good idea. I haven't seen him for years.
Strange idea. I didn't know my sister had any affection for my brother. Or for me, come to that.
Well, I suppose blood is thicker than water.
I think not in my family.
Oh, but you'll let them come.
Fortunately, we have no money to lend them.
Well, my dear, you'll excuse me. I must get on with the day's work.
Of course. Oh, Cobham is driving me into Manchester to do some shopping. Is there anything you want from the shops there in particular?
How long will you be there?
Oh, I shall be back at lunch at the usual time.
Would you mind getting me a supply of drugs from Wilton's, the chemist in the High Street? Oh, it's just a routine thing to replenish my stocks.
If you can make me out a list of what you want.
Oh, no, I shall have to write them an order and sign it to make it official. I'll go and do that now.
see you so soon.
You said in your letter you'd be back today. You know, Madeline, you could make a first-class tennis court on that lawn of yours if you... Oh, hello, Bickley. Hello, Denny. Well, why don't you? It'd be as good as Bickley's at least.
You take such a lot of upkeep.
You've got gardeners, haven't you? Make them work for their living. Well, if you're going to talk about medical matters, I must be off. Goodbye, Matters.
Don't call me that.
Sorry, Madeline. Is that better? Bye, Bickley. See you around. I say, aren't you up at Oxford these days? I should think I'm not. Why ever not? Go get Madeline to tell you. She knows.
You're a coward.
Goodbye, Matters.
He's been sent down for 3 weeks for debagging a dog.
And is that what's so funny?
And painting his hinder parts scarlet.
Do you find that amusing?
Yes. Don't you? Oh, darling, don't be such a stick in the mud. You're not as old as all that.
No. What was he doing here, anyway?
Denny? Same as you, I expect. Called to say welcome home. Do you think I look well?
More beautiful than ever. I can't stay long. Visitors for lunch. But I had to find out if you still felt... You went away to think, you said. I wondered.
I have thought, Edmund. Darling.
If only you were free.
Sit down.
There you go.
Now, I asked you both to propose yourself for a visit here because I wanted you, as her nearest relatives, to see the changes that have taken place in her these last few months.
Indeed we have. Shocking.
I'm afraid I have something rather unpleasant to tell you. Oh, I think it's only right that you should know. Besides, the responsibility is rather more than I should care to carry alone.
Well, cut the cackle, Edmund, and come to the horses. What's the matter?
Dope.
Really? How did you know?
Spotted it. Moment I saw her. Seen plenty of cases in my time, you know. No mistaking him. What is it, eh? Cocaine?
Morphia.
Ah.
I gave her a small dose to cure her headaches. Then she wanted more. Of course, I refused, but she's been helping herself while I've been out.
When you realized she was helping herself, surely you cut off the supply.
Of course I did. But she forged my name on an order to my chemist in Merchester and got a large supply that way.
Cunning. They always are.
Well, Edmund, what are you going to do about it?
In my opinion, she should be sent into a home for curative treatment.
Can you afford it? It's no use expecting us to help, you know.
Oh, I should be prepared to make such sacrifices as were necessary.
No, I might be able to help a bit.
Hilda, I think I should like you to take a look at her arm. The puncture.
Surely there can be no need.
No, I think you'd better. You see, my position is a rather delicate one. But you could easily make some excuse now while she's resting.
Well, if you really think it's one's duty.
The upper part of the left forearm.
Just how bad is she? In her health, I mean, really.
Well, I fear it may be due to organic changes in the cerebral cortex, in which case it's very bad indeed.
Then, do you know what I'll do? I'll give her a head to this morphia stuff. Let her finish herself off.
Would you?
Far and away the best thing to do in these cases. After all, why the hell keep them alive just to go through a lot of pain, eh?
You know, there's something to be said for that point of view, but alas.
Goodbye, Edmund.
Goodbye, Hilda.
Painful visit.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Well, let us know what happens.
I will. Just off, Florence.
Yes, sir.
2:30. Is your mistress in the drawing room?
Yes, sir, she is.
Goodbye, Julia. I'm off on my rounds now.
Goodbye.
I expect I'll be back about tea time. Julia. You don't want Florence to hear. You're after the morphia, Julia.
Oh, it's very bad today. I must have an injection. I must. Please, Edmund.
Very well. It's a long time since you've had one. Perhaps I might give you one. Now hold this, would you? I need both my hands to do this properly. I've made the dose rather bigger than last time. Quite considerably bigger. Julia, you're quite certain that you want me to...
Please, Edmund.
upstairs and lie down. Straight upstairs. You hear? And 15 minutes from now, you'll never have a headache again.
Hello, Teddy.
This wretched car suddenly stopped a few minutes ago. Really, I should have to think about getting a new one.
Yes. I say, Teddy, did
You've got the time on you.
Oh, no, sorry, I didn't put my watch on.
Oh, what am I saying? 25 to 3. I should be late for Mrs. Hobbs and her bronchitis.
Teddy?
Yes, I'm in rather a hurry, Ivy.
Teddy? Did you know I'm engaged now?
Yes, someone told me. Congratulations. Capital fellow, Chatford.
Are you glad, Teddy?
Yes, of course I'm glad. Well, I must be going. It's 25 to 3. I'll give you a lift anywhere.
No, I'm just out for a walk.
Well, au revoir then, Ivy.
Au revoir, Teddy.
Hello, Denny.
Hello. Look, walk round to the garden with me, will you?
I'm sorry, I've come to see Miss Cranmere.
Yes. Well, come round to the garden. I want to say something to you.
Oh, very well.
Now, look here, Vicky. About Madeline. Well, she's told me about you.
She did she?
Yes, and she doesn't care for you, you know.
Oh, who does she care for, then?
Me.
Really, Teddy?
Damn it, you didn't smile. I mean what I say. I love Madeline, and I'm damn well going to marry her.
Oh, you are you?
Yes. So now you've got it.
Well, well.
Of course, she was carried away by your being so much older. It flattered her inexperience or something. You seemed to exert some extraordinary kind of fascination over her. Well, that's what happened.
I see.
Oh. I must say, you take it damn well.
Take what?
Our engagement.
Your what?
Our engagement. I told you. We're going to be married. We were engaged this morning.
Nonsense.
Fact. I tried to break it as gently as I could. But it's a bit rotten for you. Fact. I tried to break it as gently as I could. But it's a bit rotten for you. Madeline asked me to give you this after I'd told you.
Edmund, dear, I have asked Denny to tell you the news. I know you will be terribly upset, but it is the best way for both of us. For the last time, Edmund, my love.
It's no good. If you want to see Madeline, she's out.
Edmund, you shouldn't have tried to see me.
Madeline, this is all nonsense, of course.
No, it isn't nonsense. I thought it all out. This is the best way.
You don't love Denny.
Need you have asked me that?
I tell you what you're going to do.
Let me go. You're hurting me.
You're going to go straight downstairs and break off this preposterous engagement. Tomorrow we shall go to London to obtain a special license. We shall be married in 3 days from now.
But what about Julia? Let me go. You're hurting me.
Julia is dead.
Dr. Bickley?
Your mistress is hysterical. Fetch me some cold water.
Yes, sir. But you're wanted on the telephone, sir. Your housemaid. I'm afraid there's bad news, sir.
Watsworthy, sandwich.
Oh, thank you.
Not
Welcome to the girls.
Of course, I should be delighted. Girls, sandwich.
Oh, thank you, Father.
Thank you.
How can you say such things with a poor lady only 1 year in her grave? That would be simply horrible of you.
Then I'm not the only one that's horrible. Mother's horrible, father's horrible, half Wyburn's cross is horrible.
I don't believe it for a minute.
Well, I can tell you this. Father does think there's something funny about Mrs. Bickley's death, but he doesn't want to make a fuss because he doesn't want to cause a scandal in the village. So there.
Mrs. Bickley's sister and brother confirmed the evidence about him. What?
Oh, he got round them, all there in it too.
I think it's awful to go around saying things like that. Quanion, you're a little beast.
All right then. Call me a liar. I'll jolly well show you. Mother?
No, Onion.
Mother? Onion, you're not to. What is it, dear? Winifred's calling me a liar because I told her that you and Father weren't satisfied with the verdict on Mrs. Bickley's death last year. You remember what you said?
No, dear, I don't remember.
Yes, you do. You said...
No, I didn't, dear.
And Father said...
That will do, Quanion. Dry up.
Miss Peavy, may Winifred and I go out and look at your gloxinias?
Yes, of course, Quanion, if you've finished.
Oh, yes, we've finished. Really, we have. Come along, Winifred.
How naughty of Quanion that was. Really, what a thing to say.
Well, of course they wouldn't say anything to us while we were in there. But if we admired the flowers in that bed just under the window and kept out of sight of the peavy and the wop...
Quanion, I think you're terrible.
Why weren't you satisfied? No, really. I mean, do you think we should? I mean, isn't it rather... What do you mean, Adela? Well, the verdict was accidental death, wasn't it? And if anyone wasn't satisfied, I mean, isn't that hinting at something quite dreadful?
I am sorry to say that we have all been hinting in our thoughts for the last year at something quite dreadful. Perhaps the time has come to say plainly that I, for one, am not satisfied. It is my opinion that Julia Bickley's death was not accidental at all. That she deliberately killed herself because of... well, we all know what.
You could come. I know how very busy you are, Mr.
Yes, I'm afraid I was delayed by an important client.
Look, Ethel, fetch some fresh tea for Mr. and Mrs. Chatford. Ivy, dear, do try one of those Eccles cakes. I made them myself this morning.
Thank you, Miss Peavy. I'd love to.
What a lovely hat. Really, Ivy, you look so smart and pretty. I hardly knew you.
Mother's dropping bricks again.
I suppose it's living in Manchester.
Oh, this hat. I got it in Paris on our honeymoon. William gave it me.
A model?
Charming. Really charming. How lucky you didn't arrive 5 minutes earlier. We were being quite libelous. You'd have had us all in the dock.
Oh, really? I trust I was not your subject.
It's just silly village talk. Gossip, you know, about poor Mrs. Bickley. Oh, dear, I shouldn't have said that.
Well, I had rather meditated raising the subject myself, or at least the subject of Dr. Bickley.
I quite agree. It's time it was raised.
I'm afraid I haven't seen him once since my marriage. Tell me, how is he bearing the loss of his wife?
I think as well as one might have expected.
Why, I'm glad. Very tragic affair. The coroner, I thought, handled it most tactfully.
Oh, yes, yes.
Particularly in view of the gossip about Dr. Bickley's friendships in the neighborhood, which were, to say the least, indiscreet.
For a man in his position.
Names were mentioned in this connection, I understand, though not at the inquest.
Names have frequently been mentioned in connection with Dr. Bickley.
Oh, really? Whose?
I've certainly heard Mrs. Denny Bourne, Madeline Cranmer as she was, I've certainly heard her name coupled with Dr. Bickley's. At least they were very close friends. Though not so much after she got engaged to Denny.
Ah, yes, wasn't the engagement announced on the very day of Mrs. Bickley's death? A most curious coincidence.
Do have some of my orange cake, Mr. Chatford. I made it myself. So
Might I have another cup of your excellent tea?
Oh, Ivy, dear, you're eating nothing. I finished, thank you, Miss Peavy.
Oh, really?
Yes, I'd heard about Miss Cranmere, but I understood there was someone else, someone previous to her. Perhaps you've heard that too.
No, I've never heard of anyone else mentioned. Have you, Adela? No one. I think you must have been misinformed.
Oh, really?
Letters for you, sir.
Thank you, Florence. What a lovely day.
Yes, it is, sir. Can I get you some more coffee?
Yes, please, Florence. Just half a cup. I have to go over and see that poor Sanford boy again.
Poor Mrs. Sanford. She's that worried.
Curious case. It's awfully like food poisoning, but... Thank you, Florence. Nothing interesting. I got your note. What is it, Ivy?
Someone might see us. Let's get out of sight.
Ivy, what's the matter? Something wrong? Oh, tell me, dear.
It's dreadful, Teddy. Terrible.
What is?
William's gone to London.
Well?
Otherwise, I couldn't have had the car. I'm not supposed to drive it, but he's gone.
Not to run away from you, left you.
No, it's about you, Teddy.
Me?
He's gone to Scotland Yard.
Scotland Yard? Whatever for?
Because he hates you, Teddy. He hates you.
I've never done anything to him. Why should he hate me? My God, Ivy, you didn't tell him about us.
I couldn't help it. He got it out of me. Oh, you don't know what he's like. I tried not to tell him. I swear I did. But he knew I hadn't been good, and oh, you don't know what he's like, on and on.
All right, dear, all right, don't cry. Never mind, it's done now. Probably only said it to frighten you. Anyway, even if he does go to Scotland Yard, what can he prove? 2 minutes conversation will clear the whole thing up.
But he suspects something horrible.
What?
He thinks that Mrs. Bickley took the overdose of morphia deliberately. She was driven to it by your scandalous conduct with Madeline Cranmere.
He believes that Julia committed suicide?
Yes. And he wants to drag it all up so that you'll have to leave Wyvern's Cross.
He believes it. Ivy, could you find out everything that happened at Scotland Yard and anything else like that?
I could try.
Yes, it's probably better if you tell your husband that you hate me now, too, and are just as anxious as he is to see me driven out of Wyvern's Cross.
Oh, Daddy, it wouldn't be the truth.
How pretty you're looking these days, Ivy. Prettier than ever. Really lovely. You wouldn't mind telling a little lie for my sake, would you? Little white lie?
Teddy, do you still love me?
Of course I do, my darling. It's just like old times with you here again. Aren't you glad to be back?
Oh, you know I am. Teddy, you mustn't. Not now I'm married. It isn't fair. Teddy, no. Darling.
Darling. Well, what news?
Nothing much. Except he's seen Madeline Vaughan.
What?
You never told me you actually once asked Madeline to marry you.
Didn't I?
But you did ask her.
So she's blabbed that too, has she?
Oh, Teddy, I do think you might have told me that yourself. Did you really love her?
No, of course I didn't.
Why did you ask her then?
What else has she been telling your precious husband?
She said...
Well, come along. Might as well hear it all.
She said she doesn't think it was suicide at all. She believes you killed Julia to marry her. Oh, Teddy, isn't that a horrible thing to say?
It was not, however, for some weeks after he had decided to murder Chatford and Madeleine that Dr. Bickley took any active steps in the matter. Murder is a serious business. The slightest slip may be disastrous. Dr. Bickley had no intention of risking disaster.
Tonight at 9:30, John Cleese and the staff of Fawlty Towers would just love to ring your bell. Be sure to tune in for Fawlty Towers.
Kind of you to spare the time, Bickley.
It was my patience, after all.
These occasions are sad enough, but when it involves one so young...
At 19, poor lad. Hardly begun to live.
And to be taken in such a way... I must confess that I had never heard of the, what was it called?
Botulism. Food contamination, normally. Caused chiefly by contaminated sausages.
Bless my soul.
First case that's ever come my way.
Let us hope it will be the last.
Oh, I don't think it will be.
By the by, I was pleased to see Mrs. Bourne at morning service last week.
Oh, yes?
First time for some months.
How is she these days?
Appears to be well, yes.
I haven't seen her for quite some time.
And you used to be such, friends.
Yes.
The end of a friendship is to be regretted.
I do so agree, Vicar. So you'll be pleased to know I have plans to renew ours.
Oh, good.
Sorry, Ivy.
Thank heavens you come. I've been waiting. I got here early.
I'm afraid I'm awfully busy just now.
Oh, I can't stay. William's meeting me with the car. I said I had to do some shopping.
Oh, William can wait.
No, he can't. You don't know what he's like, or he wouldn't say that.
Ivy, what's the matter?
He's packing me off to Spain at a moment's notice.
Spain?
He's got a married sister living there, and they wrote out of the blue asking me to go and stay. William insisted on it. He wouldn't take no for an answer.
He doesn't suspect anything.
About us? Oh, no, I'm sure of it. He's been very nice to me recently. But he says it's a chance of a lifetime. Will you miss me?
Damn the fellow. Of course I will.
Miss you terribly. I'll write to you every day. Oh.
Ivy, do you really love me?
You know I do.
Would you marry me if you were free?
Oh, Teddy.
Would you?
Of course I would, Teddy. You know I would.
Dear Ivy, what a lovely widow you'll make. Chatford? Bickley here, Wyman's Cross. I was wondering if you could possibly find time to drop by for an hour for a chat. See, I have a slight problem with law.
Oh, look, I'm very sorry, Bickley. I'm far too busy to take on any extra work at this time.
Oh, hardly extra, old chap. A small matter of some fishing rights, that's all.
Perhaps if you'd like to make an appointment to come to my office, we'll discuss the matter. Now, I really must go now, Bickley. I have a client waiting.
you, ma'am?
My dear Mrs. Bourne, how are you? And Denny, I find you both well, I trust?
Well enough.
Dr. Bickley. What a very pleasant surprise. Do sit down and have some tea.
That's very kind of you.
Not at all. I was saying to Denny only the other day, wasn't I, darling? What a pity Dr. Bickley never comes to see us anymore. He used to be such a constant visitor. One might almost say perpetual. Must be a year now.
Is it so long?
Yes.
How time flies. I didn't realize you've been married a whole year.
Yes, we have, haven't we, darling?
Yes.
You've been a widower for a year.
I'm sorry to say.
Tell me, what have you been doing?
Thinking. Regretting a number of things I did a year or so ago. Feeling remorse for them, hoping I might find forgiveness, that the hatchet might now be considered buried.
Oh, one never bears a grudge for old injuries, does one, darling?
What old injuries?
Not if one has the nobility of soul to rise above such questions.
I hoped you'd say that, Madeline. You have a noble, a truly great soul.
Do you take sugar, Edmund?
2 lumps, please. What would please me most of all,
Tell us what.
as a real sign of your forgiveness,
Whatever you say, Edmund.
would be if you would come to tea with me one day.
Of course. That would be a great pleasure.
Say next Wednesday?
Wednesday. Wednesday would be perfect, wouldn't it, darling?
If you say so.
Capital. Coming, Florence. Bickley here.
Oh, Bickley, Chatford, that business you mentioned, the fishing rights.
Now, I find that I shall be in the neighborhood of Wyvern's Cross sometime this week.
So if you still wish to discuss it with me...
Capital, my dear fellow, capital. Let's see now. How about Wednesday?
Well...
4 o'clock, then I can offer you a cup of tea.
Yes, very well then.
Splendid. I look forward to it. Wednesday then, about 4. Good afternoon, Mrs. Holmes.
Good afternoon, sir.
Those are things for tea?
Yes, that's right, sir. I'll get Florence to bring them up to the drawing room at 4 o'clock sharp.
No, I don't want you to do that. My visitors may be late. And it's such a hot day, I don't want the food to spoil by standing too long in the drawing room. It might.
Yes, I suppose it might, sir.
Well, tell Florence not to bring anything until the visitors actually come, and then as quickly as she can.
Right you are, sir.
I say, is there a chocolate cake there?
Yes, sir. Baked it myself this morning. With chocolate icing on the way you like it.
Indeed I do. I should be rather greedy with that. Well, is everything ready?
Don't you fret yourself, sir.
You just go and sit yourself in the drawing room, sir, and wait for them to come.
I say, wasn't that the doorbell?
That wasn't no doorbell, sir.
Oh, I could have sworn I heard it.
No, sir.
Oh, well, perhaps I ought to see the doctor. There you are.
Yes, that is it.
No, Florence, you stay there. I'll see to the guests. You see about bringing the tea things. Hello. Welcome. You know each other, of course.
Actually, we met driving in.
Very nearly met head on if I hadn't been such a good driver.
Wasn't as bad as that.
We missed death by a whisker.
Well, you'd have been jolly handy for the doctor. What a lovely day it is. Do come in.
Look, you've got company.
Oh, no, dear chap. You must stay and have tea. I think tea's ready waiting for us. Oh, well, not quite. Florence hasn't brought the cakes yet, but the tea's here and the sandwiches. Oh, I hope you all like potted meat. Oh, glad.
I love it, but I really...
You all sit down, will you? Madeline, will you sit there? And Chafford here. And you, Denny, over there. Now, how do you like your tea, Madeline? Is that too strong for you?
Don't you remember?
No, I'm afraid I don't.
Just the merest flavouring.
Then I'll add some hot water. You, Chafford. Strong?
Oh, as strong as you like.
Good man. And you, Denny? Strong too? Or weak, like Madeline?
Well, I don't mind. As it comes.
As it comes. Taking you at your word, Denny. There. Here you are, Madeline. Milk?
Please.
Sugar?
No, no.
Oh, of course. I remember. No sugar. Ah, here are the cakes. Thank you, Florence. Now, it was always a rule in my mother's house when I was a boy. Bread and butter before cake. Sandwiches count as bread and butter.
Then I shall have to have one.
Well, don't I get one?
Oh, I'm sorry, Denny. Completely forgotten about you.
Well, it's quite normal. I'm getting used to it.
Denny, you're not at all like that in front of Dr. Bickley.
Why not?
He might think we are...
He can think what he likes. He's been married himself, hasn't he?
Denny.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it.
I should hope not.
Well, it was only a not very good joke.
Could I have another sandwich?
My dear chap, you can have anything you want.
Yes, it was really delicious.
So glad you like them.
Well, they had good appetites, didn't they?
Not much left for tomorrow.
Mrs. Howard, are you sure that potted meat was all right?
Didn't it taste all right, sir?
I thought these sandwiches tasted just a little bit funny.
It was only opened this morning and it looked fresh enough. But it's been hot enough today to turn anything, and that's a fact.
You got the pot handy?
Does smell a bit queer, sir, now you come to mention it.
I think you're right, Mrs. Hone. It had better be thrown away. You don't want to run any risks after that poor Sanford boy. Yes, I'll drop it in the dustbin myself. Now, I'll have a look at it under my microscope first. Well, I looked at it, but I couldn't really see anything. Better safe than sorry. Perhaps you'd throw it in the dustbin, Mrs. Hone?
Certainly, sir.
Yes, thank you very much. thank you, Florence.
Have you heard the news about Mrs. Bourne, sir?
No, what?
Took very bad in the night, they say. Had to have Dr. Lidston out from Merchester and all.
Good gracious me. I hope it's not serious.
According to what they say, sir, it's about as serious as it could be.
How dreadful. I wonder if it could have been... Oh, dear me, I was taken quite badly myself in the night. Oh, nothing serious, but... I think you'd better take this bacon away, Florence. I don't feel quite up to it. Yes, I'll just have some coffee and dry toast. Dear me, what a curious coincidence.
Oh, sir, you don't think it could have been that potted meat, do you?
Just what I was thinking, Florence. Hello? Dr. Bickley, Wyvern's Cross. Could I speak to Mr. Chatford, please? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Hope it's nothing serious. Dr. Lidston's looking after him, is he? Good. Well, would you give him my condolences and say, I hope he'll be feeling better very soon. Goodbye. Well, so far, so good.
Good evening, sir. Dr. Bickley.
Yes.
You don't know me. I'm Chief Inspector Russell, Scotland Yard. Do you mind if I come in?
Of course, Chief Inspector. Go along to my consulting room.
Thank you, sir.
Well, do sit down.
Thank you, sir.
Cigarette.
Thank you, sir. I don't mind if I do.
Now, what did you want to see me about, Chief Inspector? No trouble among any of my patients, I hope?
Oh, no, sir. It's nothing like that. It's rather more personal, I'm afraid, sir.
Personal?
Well, you know, we have to look into these rumours, just as a matter of form. I mean, I'm really sorry to have to bother you with it.
What rumours?
It's unpleasant for you and unpleasant for me, too, having to rake it all up, but I'm sure you'll see that.
Oh, but really, it's too preposterous, you know. Oh, I won't pretend I'm not aware of the most dreadful rumours that have been circulating about my poor wife. De mortuis nil nisi bonum doesn't hold good in villages like Wyvern's Cross. Eh?
No, sir, probably not. I mean, I've no doubt it's all a mare's nest, sir, but there you are.
In any case, my wife's dead now. Whether her death was accidental or whether she deliberately took her own life, what does it matter? No amount of investigation is going to bring her back.
It's very true, sir. But if you just let me put my question simply as a matter of form.
Certainly, Chief Inspector. But, talking of dry work, I've got some whiskey in the drawing room.
Oh, not for me, sir. No, never touch it.
Really?
Well, not when I'm on duty. It makes me too muddled, it does.
Bring the decanter anyhow. Perhaps you'll reconsider later.
Well, perhaps you'd like to move in there, sir. It might be more comfortable for you.
Yes, why not? This way. I'd have rung for the maid, but I've no servants in the house at night. They're from the village.
Maid and cook, would that be, sir?
Housemaid, cook, and gardener.
Ah.
You're quite sure, Chief Inspector?
Oh, quite sure, thank you, sir.
Well, you don't mind if I...
No, not in the least, sir. You go ahead. So, the first thing, sir. I mean, as a matter of form, would you mind telling me the details of your wife's illness?
It all started with her having severe headaches. That was, what, a year or so before her death?
A year or so?
Yes, a year or more.
A year or more.
So I absolutely refused to give her any more injections.
And what happened then, sir?
She began to help herself.
And you never realized?
Indeed I did. My stock of morphia was dwindling, and there was only one possible explanation.
But you did nothing about it?
Chief Inspector, do you imagine I wanted to encourage my wife in such a dangerous practice? Naturally, I locked it up.
I see. And what happened then, sir?
Well, if you must know, she forged my name on an order for a large supply to my chemist in Merchester. It's exceedingly painful for me to have to tell you this.
Yeah, naturally it is, sir. I need hardly say that. I'm coming to ask you. You haven't got that order by any chance, have you?
Yes, I think I can lay my hands on it.
No, don't bother now, sir. Before I go, do nicely.
As you please.
On the afternoon of your wife's death, sir, would you mind telling me your movements? There's suggestions of negligence on the part of the coroner, and you know what trouble that might stir up. So I'm afraid I've got to show myself to be thorough, even though it is rather wasting your time.
Well, let me try to remember.
If you would, sir.
I left the house to go on my visits at just 2:30, I think it was. And I'd hardly gone around the corner when I had trouble with the car. The engine conked out. I had to stand there quite a while swinging the handle. And while I was there, Miss Ridgway came along.
Miss Ridgway, sir?
She is now Mrs. Chatford.
Ah.
Well, fortunately, the car started again and I wasn't very late with my visits. I say, I may have entered them down in my daybook. Yes, I'm pretty sure I did. Oh, I'm afraid it means going back to the surgery again.
Oh, that's no trouble, sir.
Perhaps you wouldn't mind bringing the siphon, Chief Inspector.
A pleasure, sir.
Are you absolutely sure you will join me?
Not when I'm working, sir, if you don't mind.
Now, let me see. It was May. May the 7th. Shall I ever forget? Yes, we're in luck. I entered all my visits.
We are indeed in luck, sir. Do you mind if I take this, sir?
Not at all.
Save me the bother of copying it out.
And the other thing you wanted was?
The order for the morphia, sir. Signed by your wife.
Forged by my wife.
Oh, sorry, sir. Sorry, meant forged.
Yes. But well enough to pass for mine. Yes. Here it is. Look. The signature's shaky. That someone was trying to trace it.
Oh, yes. Yes, I see.
Was there something else, Inspector?
Well, there is something it's my duty to ask you, sir. I don't know whether you've heard it, but there's an idea going around that your poor lady's death wasn't due to morphia at all.
What? Don't understand.
Well, the suggestion is that it was due to arsenic. Covered by a dose of morphia.
Arsenic? Nonsense.
Well, you keep arsenic by you, of course.
Only foul the solution. A very great deal of that would have to be drugged to cause death.
There isn't any white arsenic anywhere to which your wife could have had access.
Certainly not. The idea is ludicrous.
Yeah, well, so I fancied, sir. I'm sorry to trouble you.
Arsenic? It's such a painful death. You see, the wife of any medical man would know that. I think you better see Dr. Lidston. Oh, I called him in straight away. He'll tell you that the death was consistent with morphine poisoning and nothing else. Certainly not arsenic.
Dr. Lidston?
Yes. L-Y-D-S-T-O-N.
Thank you. Well, I think that really is that, sir. I'll have that drink now, if I may.
Of course, Chief Inspector, you've earned it.
Oh, that's enough, sir. You can't have a chief inspector drunk on duty.
Oh, but you're off duty now.
Yes. Yeah. Well, here's to the silencing of the rumours, and may they not bother you any more.
Here's to it. Of course, I know of their source.
Sir?
Oh, yes. I know where they come from. A man named Chatford in Merchester, a solicitor. He has a grudge against me, and he's started these rumours to do me a bad turn.
Is that so, sir?
Do you think I should take steps against him for libel, Chief Inspector?
Well, in the first place, sir, why has he got this grudge?
confidentially.
Oh, yes, of course.
He married a girl and later found out she'd been my mistress.
Your mistress?
Yes.
Was that before her marriage or since?
Well, I can trust you.
Yes, of course.
Both.
Oh. Well, if you take my advice, sir, you'll do nothing for the time being. I mean, you don't want to drag the girl into the witness box to admit adultery, which is what it would lead to. And if you're sure these rumours do come from him, well, I mean, he's had the matter taken up officially and an inquiry made. I really don't see what more he can do about it.
Thank you, Chief Inspector. I'm most grateful. Cheers.
Cheers.
We doctors have to be like Caesar's wife if we're to keep our practices.
Well, I won't say I'm not in the same position myself, rather. Still, if one likes the ladies well enough, one can always find ways, eh? Well, I won't keep you any longer. Thank you very much for the drink. I suppose we shall meet again, but you understand I have to do my duty.
Oh, of course. Perfectly. Well, sure there's nothing more I can do for you?
I don't think so, sir, no.
Anything. I'm quite at your disposal.
Well, since you're so kind as to make the offer...
What is it?
I would like it if I could see over the rest of the house. It would help me when I come to write out my report.
Of course. Delighted. Should we start with the drawing room?
No, thank you, sir. I think I've seen enough of that already.
Dining room,
then? Yeah, I might as well see the lot while I'm about it.
And last, but by no means least, my hobby room.
Well, it's lucky I didn't make a real search party of it, sir. It'd take half a day to go through all this. Oh. You go in for scientific experiments then, do you, Doctor?
Oh, just a little research work occasionally. I've always been interested in it. Of course, a country GP doesn't find much time, but one does what one can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really very grateful to you.
Interested in it. Of course, a country GP doesn't find much time, but one does what one can.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really very grateful to you. Yes, I really am extremely grateful, sir, for being so frank and open and helping me on so many points.
Robert, any help I can give, anytime.
Well, goodbye, sir. I don't suppose we shall meet again.
Goodbye, Chief Inspector. I should be sorry, in a way.
Bless my soul, sir. You don't want policemen around? Not in a lovely little country spot like this. Well, good night, sir.
Good night. Good morning, Florence.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, is there any more news of Mrs. Bourne?
They say she's still bad, sir.
No word?
Not that I've heard, sir.
I think I'll drop by after breakfast and have a word with Denny. Oh, with Mr. Bourne.
Yes, sir.
He doesn't want to feel guilty in any way.
Oh, no, sir.
Hello, Bickley.
Hello, Denny. I've come to see the invalid.
You can't, I'm afraid. She won't see you.
Oh. Well, fact is, I had rather bad tummy trouble the same night that she did, and I cured it with jalap and cream of tartar. An old-fashioned remedy, but a good one. I thought it might do the same for her, so I've made up a pill.
Well, it's good of you, but she refuses to see you. She told me that, and believe me, when she tells me something, that's that.
I say, you feeling quite well?
Perfectly.
Looking rather pale. Not the usual bright Denny we all know.
Shut up, Bickley. And there's no point hanging around. She won't see you.
Oh. Well, in that case...
Goodbye.
Hey, you're quite sure you wouldn't like me to leave it with you? Perhaps you could get her to take it.
Thanks. But any help she needs, she'll get from Dr. Lidston.
Come in, Bickley. I was expecting you. Oh, were you? Why? I understood you referred him to me. Oh, yes, the chief inspector. No. Yes, I did. That's not what I've come to see you about now. No, look here, Lidston. I hear Chatford's been taken in. Chatford? Oh, yes. How bad is he? Well, you're his doctor, aren't you? To be frank, he's in a pretty bad way. Dangerous? Decidedly dangerous, I should say. Why? Well, I'm very worried, you see. He came to tea with me the other day. The Bournes were also there. 3 of the 4 of us were taken ill in the night. Bourne wasn't taken ill? No, he was the only one who wasn't. Oh? You were then? Yes, I was. And quite decidedly. Fortunately, I was able to eliminate most of the poison and... Poison, eh? You think you were poisoned? Well, surely. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? And, what do you imagine was the nature of this poison? Some sort of food poison, I should imagine. That's why I've come to see you, to find out how you've been treating Chatford. Oh, I know it's an awful cheek of me in a way, but I really am interested. I've not called you in for a consultation. Oh, I know, but I'd very much like to take a look at him. Out of sheer professional interest, quite apart from the personal angle. I wonder if you could... What? Take me with you next time you go to see him. When are you going? This afternoon? Somewhat irregular, isn't it? Oh, Chatford won't mind. No, Bickley, I'm sorry. Oh, come along. Stretch your point, Lidston. It isn't something I could agree to. No, I'm sorry. Oh, very well. I've no doubt you're quite right to be so old-fashioned in questions of etiquette, as I've no doubt you are in your treatment. Remind me by explaining what you mean by that. Well, what have the symptoms been? What one would expect. Tongue furred, abdominal pains, cramps in the lower limbs, vomiting, diarrhea. Pronounced? Well, not so pronounced as one might have expected, no. Any paralytic symptoms? No, I don't think so. Well, possibly. I hadn't particularly noticed. Have the pupils been dilated? Yes, I think they have. Then what is your diagnosis? Acute gastroenteritis? I don't agree with you, Lidston. No. From what you told me and from what I've seen for myself, I should say it was a clear case of botulism. Botulism? I'm pretty certain where the infection came from, too. We had potted meat sandwiches for tea. Dear, dear. Botulism? That never occurred to me. Ah, that's where I scored. I had a case recently. It proved fatal, unfortunately, but it gave me the experience. Well, what do you advise, then? A full dose of jalap and cream of tartar as soon as possible. The sooner the better. I think we'd better go and see Chatford straight away and give it to him. Luckily, I brought one with me. You did? Yes, I was practically certain, you see, and I judged speed would be advisable, so I made one up. Well, now, I don't want to hurry you, but... I have not yet agreed with your diagnosis. What? I will willingly keep the pill, though, in case I come to agreement. Either I am called into consultation or I am not. Very well. You are not. Then I think we have nothing more to say to each other. Good day.
Sir, there was a message from Dr. Lidston.
Yes?
Urgent, he said it was. Would you meet him right away at Mr. Chatford's house? Does that make sense, sir?
Yes, Father. That makes very good sense. called up in the middle of Wednesday night. His wife is abroad, it seems. I had a look at him and ordered hot applications to the abdomen and later a colon washout of normal saline. And I made him up a prescription of bismuth and soda with hydrocyanic acid. Normal treatment, in fact, for gastroenteritis. I saw no reason at the time to suspect anything else. Oh, quite. He made no mention of having eaten food he may have thought infected. How could he? How could any of us? And you say this mixture you prepared gave you relief? Oh, it may even have saved my life. You brought a capsule? One cannot stand by and see a patient suffer.
Not before time, sir. Tea's all ready for you.
Thank you, Florence.
All this toing and froing, you must be worn out.
On the contrary, I'm feeling remarkably fresh.
Oh, while you were out, sir, the man came about the cistern.
Cistern? What cistern?
Our cistern, sir. He said you knew about it. The cistern in the attic. Cucumber sandwiches. And you haven't drunk any tea, and it'll be cold now. Shall I make you some more?
No, thank you, Florence.
Well, I'd better clear away now if you don't want it. You're not feeling ill, are you, sir?
No, just tired.
Well, why don't you have a lie down? Put your feet up till it's time for your evening surgery. That'll do you good.
Perhaps I'll do that.
I'm going off now, sir.
Good night, Florence.
I've laid your supper in the dining room, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want before I go?
No.
Well, good night then, sir. I hope you'll feel better in the morning.
Oh, I'm much restored now, Florence. Much restored. Oh, good evening, Chief Inspector. Do come.
Good evening, sir. And, can I introduce Superintendent Allhays?
Good evening, Superintendent.
And Detective Sergeant Tanner.
Pleased to meet you, Sergeant. Well, won't you come into my consulting room? Now then, what's it all about this time?
Inquiries have been made concerning the recent illnesses of Mrs. Madeline Bourne and Mr. William Chatford after taking tea with you here on the 15th instant. Acting on instructions from me, Detective Sergeant Tanner of Scotland Yard made a search this afternoon of your dustbin. In it, he found a half-consumed jar of potted meat, which has since been shown to contain germs which might have caused such illnesses. It is therefore necessary to inquire whether, and if so, how and by whom, this contaminated potted meat might have been added to the food partaken of at your tea party. It has occurred to me, therefore, that you might like to make a statement regarding your actions on the 14th instant, and any other observations which might throw light upon the matter.
Certainly. I'll tell you anything I can.
I must add that anything you say may be taken down and used in evidence hereafter.
Perhaps you'd like me to begin at the beginning.
If you please.
The jar of potted meat was bought by Mrs. Holmes.
Excuse me, Doctor. Would you mind beginning by saying that I cautioned you before you said anything? Just to be on the safe side for me.
Oh, of course, certainly. I should like to say that first
Would you
of all,
mind beginning something like, I, Edmund Alfred Bickley, having been cautioned by Superintendent Allhays that anything I may say may be taken down in evidence and used hereafter, wish to make the following statement.
That will do very well.
Right, sir.
The jar of potted meat in question was bought by Mrs. Holmes.
Sorry to interrupt, Doctor, but what about putting that in later, when you come to it? Might I suggest you begin with your acquaintance with Mr. Chatford?
Oh, very well.
Well, did it look better, don't you think?
It seems rather irrelevant to me. I have known Mr. Chatford for some years. He was an old acquaintance of mine, and...
Relations always friendly, sir?
Perfectly.
Until his marriage, eh? Well, you were telling me last night he married an old flame of yours.
Oh, well, that didn't affect our relations with each other in the least.
Oh, come on, Doctor. Not when you were still sweet on her.
But I wasn't. If I had been, I should have married her myself. My wife was no longer alive at the time of Mr. Chatford's marriage, you must remember.
Sorry to have interrupted, sir.
I've known Mr. Chatford for some years.
I have known Mr. Chatford for some years. Our relations have always been perfectly friendly, and when told the symptoms, I immediately diagnosed an attack of botulism, having recently had such a case under my observation. Perhaps I should mention the incubator here.
Incubator, sir?
Yes, I have long been interested in the action of certain digestive juices on particular aspects of diet, particularly since this case of botulism. So I purchased an incubator from Messrs. Rabbage & Co., Wigmore Street, London.
For the purpose of carrying out experiments, sir?
Oh, I have no more than a rudimentary knowledge of bacteriology, you understand, and I'm certainly not remotely competent to separate a particular bacillus. But I thought it worth trying, as an experiment, to see if I could make a culture, to see if there were any bacilli in this potted meat.
And did you, sir?
Yes, I jolly well did. And I put it into a capsule, intending to examine it under my microscope. Unfortunately, I have not had time.
May I ask where this capsule is now, sir?
Yes, in a pillbox, in the right-hand drawer of that cabinet. Here. Do you want all this written down?
Oh, strange you weren't ill yourself, sir, following this tea party of yours.
Oh, but I was. Fortunately, I was able to cure myself. That was why I was so anxious to get the capsule to Mr. Chatford this afternoon.
And what capsule would that be, sir?
A mixture I made up of jalap and cream of tartar. Well, since it cured me, I thought it might do the same for Chatford. So I prepared a capsule and put it in a pillbox in that drawer there.
Well, wasn't that rather dangerous, sir? Considering that's where you put the infected one.
Not in the least. Good gracious me. Never occurred to me. In view of my own recovery,
I gave the capsule to Dr. Lidston to administer to his patient if he thought advisable. I cannot say whether Dr. Lidston administered the dose or not, as Mr. Chatford was in a state of considerable collapse at the time.
Thank you, sir. You wish to make any corrections, additions, or erasures before you sign it?
Not at all, thank you very much. I'll sign it now. There. Well, that's done. Now, what about a drink? Chief Inspector?
No, thank you, sir.
You, Superintendent.
I think the superintendent's got something he wants to say to you, sir.
Oh, yes? What?
Edmund Alfred Bickley, it is my duty to warn you that anything you say may be taken down and used in evidence hereafter.
Yes, you said that already, hours ago.
I now arrest you on a charge of attempting to murder Mr. William Chatford and Mrs. Madeline Bourne by administering poisonous germs to them at Wyvern's Cross on the 15th of August, 1929.
You can't. There's no evidence. No evidence at all.
Oh, you needn't worry about that, Bickley. As your solicitor, I assure you they won't press that charge. They know they couldn't get a conviction. Why, they've no real evidence at all.
I should think not, indeed.
They have a prima facie case, no doubt, and we'll have to get out our answer to it. But, of course, they only made the arrest to free their hands for this other investigation. Now, that's what we've got to concentrate on.
It's outrageous, simply outrageous. To lose such a wife is bad enough without her.
Yes, well, I agree with you. But the moment they got that order from the Home Secretary to do it...
To do what?
My dear fellow, they exhumed your wife.
Edmund Alfred Bickley, I have to inform you that you are charged with the murder of Julia Elizabeth Mary Bickley at Wyvern's Cross on the 7th of May, 1928.
Put up the prisoner. Edmund Alfred Bickley, You are charged with murder, and the particulars are that on the 7th day of May, 1928, at Wyvern's Cross in the county of Hampshire, you feloniously, willfully, and of malice aforethought, did kill one Julia Elizabeth Mary Bickley. How say you? Are you guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty, of course, you old idiot. Not guilty.
May it please your lordship, gentlemen of the jury. The prisoner in the dock stands before you charged with the murder of his wife, Julia Elizabeth Mary Bickley. It is my duty, in conjunction with my learned friend, to lay before you the evidence in support of this indictment. The motive for this appalling crime was, as I shall make abundantly clear to you by the evidence of Mrs. Madeline Bourne, who was then Miss Madeline Cranmere, was sexual passion. A passion for the then Miss Cranmere. A desire to marry Miss Cranmere so strong, so violent, that the accused was ready to go to any lengths whatsoever, was willing to commit murder in order to rid himself of his legal wife and be free, so he hoped, to marry Miss Cranmere. All this without the slightest encouragement on the part of Miss Cranmere, indeed, quite against her own personal desires. Miss Cranmere, I shall refer to her by her maiden name until we come to the point at which she got married, came to live at the Hall, Wyvern's Cross, in June 1927. Naturally, she became acquainted with Dr. and Mrs. Bickley. Soon after her arrival in the village, she was invited to a tennis party at their house. The acquaintance ripened into intimacy. Perfectly innocent on Miss Cranmere's part, but the accused already felt the stirrings of his guilty and adulterous passion. However, in my submission, it was not until several weeks after he had decided to murder his wife that the accused took any active steps in the matter. Murder is a serious business. The slightest slip may be disastrous. Dr. Bickley had no intention of risking disaster.
Well, we can congratulate ourselves so far, I think. Yes, certainly.
Congratulate ourselves? What
on? On a very fair opening. Scrupulously fair. Sir Bernard let you down quite lightly, don't you think? He's the Attorney General, you know. But I'm sorry to hear her husband's ill. Who? Mr. Bourne.
Denny?
Very ill, apparently. He's got typhoid fever.
Ha! I warned her. I told them a dozen times those trains up at the Hall needed completely retooling.
He may even be dead by now, which would be disastrous for us.
Why?
A recently bereaved widow always has an effect on a jury. Well, let's hope it doesn't happen. But apart from that, really, Vicky, I must say, he has every confidence. Every confidence.
I shall now come to the accused's attempts to kill Miss Cranmere, who had now become Mrs. Bourne. And also at the same time to kill Mr. William James Chatford, a solicitor in Merchester. Mrs. Bourne, as the principal witness against him, without whose evidence this court or any court would be unlikely to convict. And Mr. Chatford, as a person who had interested himself in the case and whose investigations played a large part in bringing the accused to justice. Dr. Bickley felt, quite correctly, that these two people were a danger, a menace to his continued freedom. So long as they were alive, he was in constant danger of arrest. And the only thing for him to do was to kill them, cold-bloodedly, with as little compunction as one might kill a mosquito or a cockroach. If it please the court, I call Mrs. Madeline Bourne.
Mrs. Madeline Bourne. Mrs. Madeline Bourne.
Take the Bible in your right hand and repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence which I shall give
that the evidence which I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Your full name is Madeline Mary St. Clair Bourne.
Yes.
And you are the widow of Dennis Herbert Blaze Bourne.
Yes.
The very recent widow, I believe. When, in fact, did your husband die?
Yesterday.
With the greatest sympathy, Mrs. Bourne, what did he die of?
Typhoid fever.
And what age was he?
24.
The same age as yourself, I believe.
Yes. Yes.
How long had you been married, Mrs. Bourne?
14 months.
Mrs. Bourne, may I say how much sympathy the court feels for you, and how much gratitude for your public spiritedness in coming here to give evidence at this time of your great bereavement.
Thank you, my lord.
We shall try not to distress you. Do please take your time.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bourne, may I ask you to cast your mind back to the summer of 1927, when, I believe, you bought a house called the Hall at Wyman's Cross.
Yes.
You were then unmarried, and your name was Madeline Cranmere.
Yes.
After your arrival at Wyman's Cross, did you make the acquaintance of Dr. Bickley and his wife?
Yes, I did.
And what impressions did you form of them?
Mrs. Bickley, Julia. I thought a saintly woman. I admired her enormously.
And Dr. Bickley, the accused?
At first, I thought him quite a nice little man. Not worthy of his wife, but quite nice.
Quite a nice little man. And did you ever have occasion to revise that opinion?
Yes.
Would you mind describing to the court the events which caused you to revise that opinion?
He came to the hall one day. He brought some sketches he had done to show me. I had expressed interest in seeing them. Then he asked if he could make a sketch of me. I sat by the window, turning my face to the light as he requested. The sketch was to be only of my face. After a while, he expressed dissatisfaction with his efforts.
What did he say? Do you remember?
He said, "Oh, God, you're so beautiful, I can't get anywhere near you." Then he threw down his crayon and advanced on me.
Mrs. Bourne, I must ask you, what happened then?
He tried to kiss me.
You let me kiss you.
And what did you do? Please tell the court.
I turned my head away in fright and escaped out of the room as soon as I could.
You were frightened?
I was terrified. I was very young then and completely inexperienced. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was terrified.
Julia was right. She's a hypocrite.
And what did you do as a result of this unpleasant incident?
I ceased to employ Dr. Bickley as my medical advisor.
But you did continue to see Dr. Bickley socially.
In such a small village, it was impossible not to.
And what was his attitude to you when you met?
He never ceased to pursue me whenever he was able to.
To pursue you?
To make advances to me.
Yes, I realize that this must be very painful to you, Mrs. Warren, but I think it is your duty to tell us what form did these advances take?
Various forms.
Please tell the court.
He wanted me to be his mistress. I, of course, told him that such a thing would be unthinkable. Then he wanted me to marry him. I pointed out that he had a wife already. Then he said he would get a divorce from his wife. I explained to him that my religious beliefs made it completely out of the question for me to marry a divorced man.
In other words, his passion for you was such that he was willing to stop at nothing to satisfy his desires.
That is how it seemed to me.
Turning to the day on which Mrs. Bickley died, would you give us an account of the events of that day?
In the morning, Denny, Mr. Bourne, came to call on me and proposed to me. This was not a surprise. We'd been in love with each other for some time. I accepted. We became engaged. He then went home to tell his parents and returned to the hall in the afternoon. We were very happy.
I am deeply sorry. We must remind you of your loss. Would you like to pause for a moment?
No, I'll go on.
Thank you.
At about tea time, Dr. Bickley drove up to the hall. Den knew about him, of course. He was always wanting to thrash him for his ungentlemanly behavior towards me. But I asked Denny to meet him and tell him of our engagement. He did so. But Dr. Bickley forced his way past him into the hall, into my bedroom, where he proposed marriage once again.
And what did you say to him?
I didn't want a row on such a happy day for me. I was tactful. I referred to the fact that he was married already.
You referred to the fact that he was married already. Kindly tell us what he replied to that.
He said, Julia is dead.
I've lost the case.
Now, Mrs. Bourne, it distresses me to have to intrude on your great sorrow.
Thank you.
But there are one or two questions that I simply must ask you, and I hope that you will answer them as frankly and as bravely as you've answered those put to you by my learned friend.
I hope I shall.
Now, you've told us of Dr. Bickley's attempt to kiss you when you were alone with him.
Yes.
And afterwards, I believe you only met him socially.
Yes.
That is, in the presence of others.
Yes.
You were never alone with him.
Never.
But Dr. Bickley, I thought you said, did not cease to make advances to you.
Yes.
And in the presence of others?
Yes.
Well, presumably these were not physical advances.
No.
So he had never succeeded in kissing you, and he did not try to kiss you again. Is that so?
Yes, it is.
Now, what form did these advances made to you at social gatherings take? I know my learned friend has asked this question already, but if you'd be so good as to answer it again, so we may be quite clear. Did he draw you aside from the crowd and whisper to you in corners?
He told me he loved me. He wanted to marry me. He offered to divorce his wife in order to marry me.
He told you he loved you?
Yes.
And did you tell him in reply that you were in love with a man who later became your husband?
No.
Could you tell us why not?
I was concerned only to repel Dr. Bickley's advances.
Yes, of course, I do understand, yes. Now, were not you and your husband a few months ago contemplating a divorce?
Certainly not.
Do you swear to that?
Really, Sir Francis, is this relevant?
Quite, your lordship. It will be apparent in a moment. Do you swear to that, Mrs. Bourne?
Certainly I do.
But to put it bluntly, you and your husband did not get along well together.
My husband and I loved each other very much.
Yes, but like most married couples, you had your quarrel.
We'd only been married 14 months.
If you wouldn't mind answering my question, Mrs. Bourne.
If I must, the answer is no. My husband and I never quarreled.
But like most women, you had your moments of jealousy.
Certainly not. My husband never gave me cause for such a thing.
Well, not after your marriage, no doubt, but before it. You never expressed jealousy of the women your husband had been fond of before he met you. I'm afraid I must press you for an answer, Mrs. Bourne.
No, never.
Then perhaps you will tell me that you did not keep him up until 4 o'clock in the morning, for nights, for weeks on end, till his health was seriously affected, while you raved at him about the women he had loved before he even knew of your existence.
Sir Francis, I must ask you to justify this remarkable line of cross-examination.
Well, certainly, my lord. My cross-examination is directed to establish that the evidence given by this witness is totally unreliable, that she's notoriously untruthful, malicious, mentally unbalanced, and I intend to call evidence of my own to prove it.
You realize, of course, what you're doing, Sir Francis.
Perfectly, my lord. My client is prepared to face any questions of a personal nature. He has nothing to conceal.
Nevertheless, I think I will adjourn the court now to give you an opportunity to think things over.
That is very kind of your lordship. I'm much indebted.
She's mad. I've always said she was mad. I've told you so a dozen times.
And the beauty of the position, you see, is now they're entitled to attack your personal character. But to do so will only damage their own case.
How's that?
If you'll be frank with me, and of course you have. Of course, there's nothing for them to attack you on except your somewhat, well, shall we say, indiscriminate relations with women. And it won't benefit them at all to show you as indiscriminate. Their whole case rests on your affection, your passion for one single woman. The more women, the less motive.
Yes, of course.
Anyhow, I fancy we've seen the end of Mrs. Bourne.
A medical certificate saying that...
Could we have it a little bit louder so that we can all hear?
A medical certificate saying that Mrs. Bourne is in bed suffering from nervous prostration and shock. She's not in a fit state to attend the court.
Ah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hector. Sir Bernard, I suggest you call your next witness.
William James Chatford.
Call William James Chatford.
William James Chatford.
The whole truth?
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Mr. Chatford, you are a solicitor with a practice in Merchester.
Yes.
You know the village of Wyvern's Cross well?
Yes.
And you know the prisoner well?
Yes, indeed I do.
Would you tell the court how you came to take a particular interest in the death of Mrs. Bickley to the extent of instigating your own investigations and later of calling in Scotland Yard?
Well, at first I thought the stories concerning Mrs. Bickley's death were mere gossip. But when I began to find grounds for concern, I considered the matter carefully and I came to the conclusion that it was my duty as a citizen to lay my information before the police.
Very public-spirited of you.
Thank you.
Now, a few days after your visit to Scotland Yard, you went to tea with the prisoner.
Yes?
Would you tell us what happened at that tea party?
Well, I understood it was to discuss some fishing rights. But when I arrived at about 4 o'clock, I met Mr. and Mrs. Denny Bourne, who'd been invited to tea. Well, I had no wish to stay, since it was clear we'd be unable to discuss any legal matters with the Bournes present. But Dr. Bickley was insistent.
Yes, but what did you eat?
Potted meat sandwiches. Chocolate cake. I thought it quite a good tea. It wasn't until after I got home that night that I began to feel ill. Then around midnight, I started vomiting. And I called in Dr. Lidston, who diagnosed gastroenteritis and prescribed...
A capsule of jalapeno cream of tartar, eh?
A dosage of bismuth and soda.
Have you ever been attended by Dr. Bickley?
No, never. Apart from that one unbidden visit, I've never been attended by Dr. Bickley professionally.
Thank you, Mr. Chatford.
Now, Mr. Chatford, on the point of your admirable public spiritedness in interesting yourself in the death of Mrs. Bickley, may we know how long it is since you became active in this matter?
I'd say about 9 months.
About 9 months?
Yes.
Mr. Chatford, how long have you been married?
Why?
Mr. Chatford, you are a solicitor, and you do not need me to tell you
that you must answer my question. Right, now, once again, then, how long have you been married?
9 to 10 months.
9 to 10 months? Could you be more exact, please?
9.5 months.
9.5 months. So your public-spirited interest in the Bickley case dates from slightly after your marriage. Slightly after your marriage.
Yes.
Now, is it true, and if it is not, no doubt you would deny it, is it true that very shortly after your marriage, your wife admitted to you that previously she had been the friend, the close friend, I might add the girlfriend of Dr. Bickley? Now, please remember you are on oath. Is it true?
Yes.
And is it not true that your interest in this case, your hounding and your persecution of Dr. Bickley, was motivated not by public spiritedness, but by common jealousy and malice, by malign vindictiveness?
You need not answer that question, Mr. Chatford.
Indeed, he need not, my lord. The jury will know what to think of him as a spiteful, vindictive busybody. That is all.
And that has put paid to your little game.
The evidence which I shall give
Shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Now, who's this chap?
Your name is Hubert Henry Ryder.
It is.
And you are the official bacteriologist to the Home Office.
I am.
Were you given a culture for examination on the 18th of August, 1929?
I was.
And was this culture taken from an incubator in Dr. Bickley's house?
So I was informed.
I shall produce evidence that this was so, my lord. Will you tell the court what you discovered with regard to the culture submitted to you for examination?
The medium submitted to me for examination was an ordinary gelatin plate. There were several colonies on the plate, all presenting the thin, notched, irregular pattern of the colon typhoid group. I carried out the usual processes and identified the different organisms. I identified Bacillus coli communis, Bacillus typhosus, and others of the same group. Bacillus enteriditis very decidedly predominated.
Now, I believe you also examined the residue of a jar of potted meat found in Dr. Bickley's dustbin.
Yes, I did. The potted meat contained Bacillus enteriditis only.
Perhaps you would explain to the court the leading characteristics of this bacillus.
Certainly. Bacillus enteriditis is a leading member of the large colon typhoid group. As regards its morphology, it is actively motile, carries several flagellae, forms no spores, and is gram-negative. Like all others of this group, it is aerobic. It grows well on ordinary media and is easy to cultivate. And so far as concerns its cultural characteristics...
I wonder...
Yes?
If you could manage to put it a little less technically, Doctor. I was meaning more particularly its effect on the human frame.
Yes, I'm sorry. Well, it is now established that Bacillus enteriditis is a very frequent cause of meat poisoning, resulting in enteric or typhoid fever. It has been discovered in meat from pigs, cattle, horses, and fish. The symptoms are due to action of the toxins. Their onset is generally rapid, not to say sudden.
And these symptoms are?
Vomiting, diarrhea, pains in the abdomen and head, prostration, collapse, cold sweats, rigors, cramps, rashes, and furred tongue.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, you have heard Mrs. Bourne's and Mr. Chatford's symptoms described. Is it your opinion that these are consistent with poisoning by Bacillus enteriditis?
Entirely consistent.
Have you any doubt that Mr. Chatford's illness and Mrs. Bourne's indisposition were caused by this bacillus having found its way into their system?
None at all.
Now, did you examine the gelatin plate also for Bacillus botulinus, the germ which causes the disease known as botulism?
I did.
Did you find any?
None.
Could you have expected to do so?
No.
Why not?
Bacillus botulinus is anaerobic. That is to say, it dies if exposed to the air. The medium as prepared was suitable for aerobic organisms only. Bacillus botulinus could not possibly have survived.
Are the symptoms of botulism similar to those of enteric or typhoid fever as produced by Bacillus enteriditis?
No, certainly not. They're totally different. The symptoms of botulism are dizziness, headaches, followed by double vision, drooping of the eyelid, dilated pupil, paralysis of the facial muscle, the larynx and the pharynx, with stasis of the intestine, giving rise to constipation.
So, it would not be possible for a medical man to diagnose a case of poisoning by Bacillus enteritidis as botulism.
Not if he was in his right senses. And whereas typhoid is only sometimes fatal, botulism, to the best of my knowledge, always is.
Well, well. If I'd have made my culture properly and killed them off, things now might be looking very nasty.
Not very helpful to you, I'm afraid.
Oh? Why not?
Well, the prosecution will demonstrate from that evidence that the infection of the potted meat could quite possibly have come from one of the cultures of Bacillus enteritidis on the plate. In other words, you could have used the plate to infect the potted meat, but it couldn't have happened the other way around. The plate couldn't have been infected from the potted meat alone.
Couldn't it?
How do you account for Bacillus typhosus and the rest of them? How did they get onto the plate? Unless you were making another experiment at the same time on the same plate. That's the only possible explanation I can think of.
Yes, that's what I did. I just remembered.
The prosecution will find that an exceedingly odd thing to do. To make two different cultural experiments on the same plate.
Look here, Gunhill. I'm a simple country doctor. Not an expert on bacteriology. Not a great expert like that chap.
I'm afraid they've got a whole string of experts coming up.
You are Dr. Raymond Hargreaves Sowerby.
Yes.
And you are pathologist to the Home Office.
I was able to find in the body of Mrs. Bickley no traces of natural disease. Certainly nothing to account for her headaches and general ill health.
The death was consistent with an overdose of morphia.
Perfectly consistent.
Your name is John Jeremiah Pym, and you are senior official analyst to the Home Office.
Yes.
Would you tell the court what you found in the organs handed to you for examination by Dr. Sowerby?
No trace of any poison at all.
No.
The morphia, which it was admitted in evidence Mrs. Bickley had been in the habit of taking in such large quantities, would in any case have disappeared after such a lapse of time, as would indeed any vegetable poison. Of a metallic poison, such as arsenic, I could find no trace whatsoever.
And no trace of any metallic substance?
I found vanadium in surprisingly large quantities, and a very little gold. I was quite unable to account for the presence of these two, which are so rarely used in medicine.
And did you continue to be unable?
Until a few days ago.
And then did the combination suggest something to you?
Yes, it did. There occurred, to my memory, by a curious chance, a proprietary preparation which appeared a few years ago, which in the course of my duties I was called on to analyze.
Oh, God.
This preparation, known as ferrolite, was one of the many proprietary medicines designed to correct uric acid diathesis, samples of which were being circulated to members of the medical profession from time to time. This particular preparation was not a success, and the profession did not take it up, as it was apt to induce violent headaches.
Oh, God. They know exactly what I did. I'm done for. Is there any point in going on with this? In dragging out the proceedings?
My dear fellow.
There's evidence about ferrolite. It looked very black.
My dear chap, of course it did. It's the prosecution's job to make things look black. Just wait till Sir Francis gets going. You'll see how white he makes them.
And I feel a very real, very strong indignation that my client should ever have been brought to trial at all. It is a cruel and scandalous thing that a doctor, a humble servant of the community, should be called upon to answer a charge of mere possibility of opportunity and imputed motive without one shred of real evidence to support the case against him. The prosecution has sought to make great play with the fact that Dr. Bickley ordered ferrolite. But we do not deny this. Of course he ordered ferrolite, openly in his own name and without concealment, and why ever not? Ferrolite was available to him. It was widely advertised to doctors throughout the country. And it was known to him as having obtained the most remarkable results in the complaint for which he required it of Mrs. Bickley, namely excess of uric acid. That it gave rise to headaches, Dr. Bickley neither knew nor even now believes. And in any case, he certainly did not connect Mrs. Bickley's headaches then with ferrolite. And why should he? When no less an authority than Sir Tamberton Folliot had declared that they must be due to quite other and perfectly natural causes. may or may not have been. There is no doubt that Mrs. Bickley suffered, and suffered severely from headaches, and very naturally sought relief in morphia. Dr. Bickley himself will testify that he refused to go on giving her morphia injections, fearing that she would become an addict. And handwriting experts will swear to you that an order to a chemist for more morphia signed with Dr. Bickley's name was a forgery. And the most obvious one, clearly forged by Mrs. Bickley herself. And Mrs. Bickley's own sister will tell you that when she last visited Wyvers Cross at the time when Dr. Bickley had long ceased to give his wife morphine injections, she, her sister, saw that her upper arm was a massive puncture. And her own brother will testify that on this same occasion, Mrs. Bickley wore the drugged expression and a haggard and a dull-eyed look of a morphine addict. I call the prisoner, Edmund Alfred Bickley.
Take the Bible in your right hand and repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence which I shall give.
That the evidence which I shall give.
Shall be the truth.
Shall be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
Now, Dr. Bickley, did you administer to your wife the dose of morphia which killed her?
No, I did not.
But you had previously administered morphia to her?
Yes, in tablet form, with a dosage of half a grain 3 times, and in the form of an injection 3 or 4 times. Each time it was to alleviate the pain of the headaches from which she suffered.
And this was how long before her death?
5 or 6 months, I think. I think 6.
Yes. And how long had your wife been suffering from these headaches?
For about a year, but they grew progressively more frequent and more painful.
And you had, I believe, been giving her a proprietary medicine called ferrolite.
Yes, she suffered from an excess of uric acid. The ferrolite was used to control this.
Yes. And did you connect the ferrolite with the headaches that your wife was having?
Oh, no, I did not. There was no reason why I should. She'd had bad headaches before I ever gave her ferrolite. I thought myself she might have a tumor on the brain.
Ah. And did you consult any doctor for a second opinion on your wife's headaches?
Oh, yes, we went to see Sir Tamerton Folliott in Harley Street.
And what did he give us his opinion?
He thought the whole trouble was caused by sepsis of the tonsils.
And did your wife, as a result of Sir Tamerton's opinion, have her tonsils out?
No. She had a horror of surgery. She said she would rather go on having her headaches, however bad.
Did you try and persuade her to the contrary?
Oh, indeed I did, but to no avail. My wife was a very strong-minded woman. When she decided on anything, it was impossible to shift her. And I can go on like this till the cows come home.
Now, can we turn the question of Miss Cranmere, as Mrs. Bourne then was? When you first met her, what did you think of her?
I thought she was a very attractive young woman.
Nothing more than that?
I thought she was a rather flirtatious type of girl, but I thought it might be amusing to flirt with her.
Mm. And had you flirted with other young women before in the Wyvers Cross area during the time of your marriage?
Yes, I had.
More than one?
Oh, many more than one. Yes, I had.
More than one?
Oh, many more than one.
And did your wife know about this?
Oh, yes, of course.
Well, why, of course. It's hardly usual for a husband to tell his wife.
Oh, yes, but Julia and I were the greatest of pals.
Ah.
I used to tell her everything, and we used to have a good laugh over it.
Oh, yes. And equally, you gave her all the details of your flirtation with Miss Cranmer.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Blow by blow.
Now, turning to the day of your wife's death, when did you last see her alive?
It was just after 2:30. Yes, I think the clock in the hall was striking the half hour as I went into the drawing room to say goodbye to Julia.
Goodbye?
I was off on my rounds. They normally took me until tea time. I told Julia I would be expected back in time for tea.
And how did your wife seem to you that last time that you saw her?
She looked as if she had one of her headaches coming on.
Did you do anything about it to alleviate the pain?
No.
Why not?
She had so often refused the normal analgesic drugs like aspirin, she said they did not suit her. And morphia I would not give her for her own good.
You would not give it to her, but she was taking it for herself.
Yes. At least that's what you've got to believe.
So, you went off on your rounds, and then you went to call on Miss Cranmer.
Yes.
Why?
I thought a little flirtation might do me good after the labors of the day.
Oh, on such a day?
Oh, I did not know then that my wife was dead.
And what happened at Miss Cranmer's house?
I met firstly with Mr. Bourne, who told me that he'd become engaged to Miss Cranmer. I was not greatly pleased at this news, since obviously it meant the end of our flirtation. For the time being, at least. But I congratulated him, and then went into the house to congratulate her.
And how did Miss Cranmer take this?
Oh, she seemed very disappointed that I didn't wish to make a scene, to shout and scream in an emotional way as if she'd broken my heart. She became quite hysterical on this point. I had always suspected her of hysterical tendencies.
And did you, at any point in this conversation with Miss Cranmer, propose marriage to her?
No, certainly not.
And did Miss Cranmer remind you that you were already married?
No, absolutely not.
And did you yourself say Julia is dead?
That is a damned lie. I beg your pardon, my lord.
Now, what have your relations with Mrs. Bourne been since?
Oh, not close, but perfectly amicable for my part.
And Mr. Chatford?
Perfectly amicable. Though my friendship, of course, had been with Mrs. Chatford rather than Mr.
Mrs.?
Mrs. Chatford had been one of my flirtations. The one immediately preceding Mrs. Bourne.
Ah, yes, so there have been a number of these flirtations.
Oh, yes, quite a number.
And in each case, your wife knew about it?
In each case, my wife and I had a jolly good laugh over it. She liked me to amuse myself. As I've already said, we were the greatest of pals. And I bet you wish your wives were like that.
Thank you, Dr. Bickley.
Dr. Bickley, on the day of your wife's death, you left the house to go on your rounds at just after 2:30.
Yes.
And then you drove out of the drive of your house, turned right, and then turned right again into the lane, which runs alongside your garden on the west side of your house.
Yes.
Why did you turn right again into the lane?
Because the first person I was to visit was Mrs. Hobbs, who lived in a cottage at the far end of the lane.
May the witness be shown the large-scale map of Wyvern's Cross, Exhibit 4. Is it not so that Mrs. Hobbs's cottage would be reached more quickly by going straight on instead of turning into the lane?
Oh, that is a more direct route, certainly. But I doubt that it is quicker.
The map shows quite clearly that the laneway to the Hobbs's cottage is a good 1/4 of a mile longer than the more direct way. And when you were in this lane, your engine, to put it in the common parlance, conked out.
Yes, it did.
At a spot precisely opposite, across your own garden, opposite the side door of your house, giving you access to your surgery with its syringes and its morphia.
At roughly that spot? Yes.
And no one was around to see your car conk out?
No, no one but myself.
So So you would have been able, without anyone seeing you, to go through your garden to your side door, get into your surgery, and get back again into your car, still without anyone seeing you.
I would hypothetically have been able.
I suggest that that, in fact, is what you did, and that while you were in the house, you gave your wife the fatal injection.
That is totally untrue. It would have needed a far greater time than I had at my disposal. And the answer to why I took the laneway to the Hobbs is that it may be on the map longer, but it is undeniably prettier. I was in the habit of going that way. It soothed my soul.
Splendid, you were splendid.
I fancy I gave as good as I got.
You certainly did.
I beat him at his own game, eh?
And the rest of it should be pretty straightforward. We're on the home stretch now. Not much further to go.
I was maid with Mrs. Bourne for 3 years. About. Until a fortnight ago.
And what happened a fortnight ago?
I left. I couldn't stand it any longer.
Done what?
The way she carried on.
She, Mrs. Bourne, that is.
Yes.
And how did she carry on?
Oh, it was terrible. Shouting and screaming and hollering and crying. Like a wild beast it was sometimes. Well, of course, she didn't do it in front of visitors. And she didn't do it to Mr. Bourne before she married him.
But after?
Oh, yes. Pretty well all the time. Well, especially if he said anything complimentary about anyone else.
That is any other woman?
Yes. No one but her was allowed to be beautiful, intelligent, or smart, or anything. And the worst was when he used to say things about the girls that he knew before he met her. Then she used to go on at him terrible, for hours at a time.
Did she treat you maids badly, in the same way?
Well, yes. When she couldn't get a man to tell her that she was beautiful and intelligent and so on, she used to want us to.
Indeed.
Frankly, we all thought she was off her rocker.
Well, now, that has finally disposed of Mrs. Bourne.
Marvellous.
I can tell you now the result is a foregone conclusion.
Really?
Oh, yes, yes. Just one more witness to stop up one more little hole.
Sure, Sir Francis.
Oh, yes, don't you worry. We can depend on her.
The whole truth?
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
It's very good of you to come forward, Mrs. Chatford. Very good of you indeed. Especially in view of your husband's role in this case. It's very independent-minded of you. Now, will you tell the court what happened to you on the day of Mrs. Bickley's death?
Oh, God, she knows. She holds my life in her hands.
That afternoon, I was walking along the lane which runs by the side of Dr. Bickley's house and garden, when I saw Dr. Bickley's car standing in the lane. It appeared to have broken down. Dr. Bickley was turning the handle to try and get it to start. I stopped and talked to him. He got it to start, and he offered me a lift, but I refused because I was out for a walk. He said goodbye and then went off.
And what time was this, Mrs. Chatford?
It was 25 minutes to 3.
And we already have evidence it was after 2:30 when Dr. Bickley left the house.
Sir Francis, that is an observation and not a question.
Well, the point is, my lord, there would not have been enough time between just after 2:30 and 25 minutes to 3 for him to have...
I'm sure the jury will have taken your point. Is that all?
Well, that is all, my lord.
Mrs. Chatford, how did you know that it was 25 minutes to 3?
Ivy, don't give me away. Ivy, I love you.
Dr. Bickley looked at his watch and told me what the time was.
So your only knowledge of what the time was Dr. Bickley telling you? Had you any means of checking that he was telling you the right time?
Ivy, I'll marry you. I'll kill Chatford. We'll live happily ever after.
Oh, yes. I had a watch of my own.
Did you look at it?
Yes, I did.
And what time did it say?
25 minutes to 3.
Do you swear to that?
I swear to it.
There is no possibility of your having been mistaken.
None whatsoever. This is the watch. It keeps very good time.
Well, it's been a very fair trial, on the whole, I must say. Very fair. Except for the one or two times when the prosecution seemed to go beyond its proper limits. But I suppose that always happens. You've been jolly decent to me, too. When it's over, we must have a drink. A jolly good laugh over it, eh?
Gentlemen of the jury, will the foreman please stand up? Mr. Foreman, have you all agreed upon your verdict?
We have.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar, Edmund Alfred Bickley, guilty or not guilty of the willful murder of Julia Elizabeth Mary Bickley?
Not guilty.
And is that the verdict of you all?
It is.
All right, lead me to the Black Maria. Or are you going to give me a drink first? I can tell you, I could use one.
Edmund Alfred Bickley, I now charge you with the willful murder of Dennis Herbert Blaze Bourne by administering to him the germs of typhoid fever, to wit, Bacillus incident. All right, grabbing you two. Come stand like stuff dummies. You are not obliged to say anything unless you wish to. But whatever you say will be taken down in writing and may be given in evidence.
Members of the jury, will the foreman please stand up? Mr. Foreman, have you all agreed upon your verdict?
We have.
Do you find the prisoner at the bar, Edmund Alfred Bickley, guilty or not guilty of the willful murder of Dennis Herbert Blaze Bourne?
Guilty.
And is that the verdict of you all?
It is. I didn't do it. It was the drains that gave him typhoid. It wasn't the sandwiches. The sandwiches were for them. I was the one who warned her. It was the drains. I didn't touch his sandwich. It was the drains that killed Denny.
Prisoner at the bar, have you anything to say why the court should not give you judgment according to law?
Yes, I didn't do it.
Edmund Alfred Bickley, the jury having found you guilty of the willful murder of Dennis Herbert Blaze Bourne, I shall waste no more words on you in passing upon you the sentence of death prescribed by the law. The sentence of the court upon you is that you be taken from this place to a lawful prison.
I didn't do it.
And thence to a place of execution.
I didn't do it. I'm not guilty.
And that you be there hanged by the neck until you be dead. And may the Lord have mercy on your soul.
I did not do it. I did not do it. I did not do it.
steps ahead of you the whole time. Oh, what a sucker.
Good morning, sunshine. You did a pretty good job yourself. You didn't need too much of my help.
No, I don't mind. I'm in the video store right now. No, it's one of those little shitty ones.
Yeah, and wouldn't that break your heart?
Oh, what do you think about City of Lost Children?
Ah, excellent film. By the same guy who made Delicatessen.
I'm on the phone, actually. What's the deal with Casino?
Ooh, to be honest, I wouldn't recommend it. It's basically a poor man's Goodfellas, but in Vegas.
Hey, hang on. I'm still on the phone. So, which one should I rent? So, which one do you recommend? All of a sudden, you're mute?
Oh, I take it you're talking to me now.
Who else would I be talking to? It's for a friend who's at home sick. Which one do you recommend?
What's the matter with your friend?
Why?
Well, if your friend has got stomach flu and is running to the bathroom every 5 minutes, then I'd go for this one. But if your friend is on some kind of medication like erythromycin, then...
You know what? Just surprise me.
This one.
Great. So how does this work?
What do you mean?
I've never been to one of these places.
You never rented a movie?
Well, I've been to a movie. Does that count?
Okay, let's start you off with a membership.
Ugh, you know what? I knew it was some kind of racket.
No, not really. You just, you need to give me your driver's license, and then I'll give you a membership.
I don't have a driver's license.
How do you get around?
I get around.
Okay, well, I can't give you a membership until you give me a driver's license.
How about a cash deposit? I'll give you $20.
20 bucks?
Yeah, 20 American dollars.
Well, you know, these old tapes are kind of hard to come
Yeah,
by.
all right. All right, I'll give you $50, and I don't want to hear anything more about it.
50 it is.
Lucky for you, I saw my pimp today.
Fletch, right?
No, his name is Donald. Well, that's it. That's all I got. Don't blow it all on cigarettes and toilet wine.
It'll be right here.
Right.
Great.
The granddaddy of them all. They say you're not supposed to have a scoreless tie in a regulation softball game. They say you're not supposed to go into extra innings beyond the regulation 7. So you can understand why the hometown fans are a little upset.
It makes no sense that zombies eat. They're dead. They have no digestive system that works.
But they need people's brains in order to continue to live in the undead world.
Yes.
Well, how come they never puke?
Their insides are full of puke.
I just don't understand why zombies have to eat people. Why don't they just go into restaurants?
Absolutely.
Makes no sense.
But they're eating to stay alive. They need to eat brains.
But they're already dead.
Yeah.
I understand them killing people, ripping them apart because they're angry that they're dead.
Right.
What are they, hungry?
They're eating to stay alive.
Hey.
It doesn't have to digest.
Hey.
It's not digest.
You like the movie?
Yeah.
Cool.
You actually watched the whole thing? I've watched it like 5 times.
Only made it halfway through, huh?
Why? They have no digestive systems. They're dead.
Yeah.
You want to see something cool?
Sure.
Watch this. Hey, guys. Here.
Okay. She stopped it when Clancy is following the professor.
Oh, my love, don't embarrass the family. It is clearly the racetrack scene.
Please. She obviously stopped at where the goons jumped Clancy back at his apartment.
You're on crack. This movie is stopped at the scene in the nightclub. Just as Baxter, depending on the tracking, just as he confesses to killing the gypsy.
That's crazy. Why would anyone stop it just as he's about to confess?
Yeah, you're right. Precisely. Hey, she wouldn't. She'd be dying to know who killed the gypsy. And so I put it to you, ladies and gentlemen, that she fell asleep before the gypsy was murdered, and then she woke up in the nightclub scene, and then, not being able to appreciate the ironic tragedy of Baxter having murdered the only person who could have gotten him off the hook, she shut it off.
I don't know.
It's a toughie.
Put it in.
It seems a little.
Yeah, let's see.
She did buy me a drink. What's wrong with that? I didn't even know who she was until she started talking about Johnny. Will you cut that music out?
Go on with the rest of the bus. Why did you kill him?
Who says I killed her?
Oh, you can't hand me that stuff.
Ooh. Cool. But scary.
Listen, I'm still gonna have to charge you full price even though you only watched half the movie. Sorry. Guys, did anyone take an envelope from underneath the register? Written on it was, nothing at all.
You wrote the words "nothing at all" on the envelope?
I don't even understand the question.
Yeah, I'm confused.
No?
No.
It looks like I have mislaid your deposit. I'm sorry.
So this is where you offer me $50 worth of movie rental.
That's a pretty good idea.
Oh, you know what? No offense, but I don't think I'm really gonna use it.
You got a lot of good movies for $50.
Or you could just take me out to a $50 dinner.
Oh.
Well, you know what? I could just use the cash just as well. Yeah, just the cash.
No. That's a great idea. Hey, I can write it off as a business dinner. Tonight?
Sure.
Do you know a place called Lightsides?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'll see you there at 8.
Deal.
Cool. All right.
Violet.
Oh, Neil. She asked me.
Hey, when you're done fucking the customers, you want to play Trivial Pursuit with us?
No, thank you.
Cleanliness and neatness, plus a daily routine of little finishing touches.
Cultivate such habits as cleanliness and neatness.
For all through the day, others are looking at you.
And now another little habit of cleanliness and neatness. Dirt under your fingernails must be cleaned every day, and it's better in private.
Hi. Well. Look who decided to finally show up for a date.
I'm only 3 minutes late.
Oh, no sweat it, kid. You got a business trip. I gotta tell you, though, you missed one hell of a happy hour. They got the best goddamn penis in town.
What?
Penis. he ate nuts.
All right.